regulated. From school boards to CEOs, they expand their cultural control. Soft power whispers shaping their utopian goals. Once in power, they destabilize the norm, creating chaos, making society swerve. Problems they orchestrate by design, blaming capitalism for the pain of clever lies. These are the four goals of the woke, embedded in actions, words they invoke. From pushing equity to Marxist dreams, in the dance of power, scheme and scheme. In every move, their agenda gleams. Remember, nothing's ever as it seems. Next capitalism, they fiercely assail. In every speech, it's the villain they unveil. From racism, patriarchy, they rail. Ain't known, ain't nothing, equity, they prevail. Ushering in their Marxist utopias, the end game. Their turmoil and strife, they aim to overthrow the old, establish their claim. With the vision, they abolish everything. They need capitalism for the pain of clever lies. These are the four goals of the woke, embedded in actions, words they invoke. From pushing equity to Marxist dreams, in the dance of power, scheme and scheme. In every move, their agenda gleams. Remember, nothing's ever as it seems. So, it's gain power, destabilize, bring capitalism into the Marxist utopia. That's what they want, that's what they want. Abolish capitalism. These are the four goals of the woke, embedded in action, words they invoke. From pushing equity to Marxist dreams, in the dance of power, scheme and scheme. In every move, their agenda gleams. Remember, nothing's ever as it seems. It's true as
Well, hello, fellow Gnostic sex cultists. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday afternoon. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that typically I do Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about, well, different aspects of the culture war, but focusing heavily on deep dives into the radical revolutionary far left, because they are the ones destroying our entire world today. And I don't know why someone is calling me on the phone just as I started my stream. Must be a spammer. I get so many goddamn spam calls. Now, can I just tell you guys? So every basically maybe 5% of the phone calls I get are actual phone calls, and every other call is like a spam call all day every day. Does anyone else have this experience? It is like, eh. Anyway, we're back today, and we're getting back to socialism. God damn it, we're getting back to the radical revolutionary far left after I do some orders of business. Because I want to tell people what's been going on. And I need to have a moment. Now, let me show you what we are going to be watching today. And listen, I actually, you know what? I don't want to start with an order of business first. I want to start with an apology. I want to start with an apology to people who have been supporting my work, whether you are a recent supporter or you've been supporting my work for years, whatever the case may be, because I really feel like in the past, maybe month or so, I've been really off my game. And there's a lot of reasons that I've been pretty off my game, and I haven't been as consistent with the Substack as I like, and I haven't been as consistent on my streams as I would like. And you know what? All of that is going to change. And there have been reasons for that, and we're going to talk about some of those reasons. But I really I really do feel like I have some of the best supporters in the world. You guys hang in with me through up and down. And usually a couple times a year we go through these phases where I'm just not on my game with things, because as it turns out, doing this shit is really, really, really hard. And sometimes life happens and life gets in the way. And the thing that I think has been causing one of the most disruptions in the last month or so has been big fucking tech. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Can we rewatch the porn is bad video? Maybe, Trendlin, okay? Maybe. You did send me a nice $20 super chat. I do appreciate the super chat. Maybe we'll rewatch the porn is bad video, but we need to do our vegetables first, and then maybe we can rewatch the porn is bad video later. Or maybe we can do it tomorrow. It's okay, you know? But like I really do appreciate you guys hanging in with me, and I am going to be getting far more consistent about the content that I've been doing on the Substack. The content, like I mean, we're doing. There's going to be a fucking content calendar and everything. I want to get more consistent about the days I'm posting certain types of content, that sort of stuff, so you guys know what to expect. And like I just want to have something that I can be held a little bit more accountable to. And so maybe this is just like what happens in the summer. I mean, I cannot believe we're almost at the end of June already. Like it's absolutely crazy. The year is flying by. And so I want to like talk, like I want to like, well, let me, I want to talk to you guys about like what's been going on. And the thing of it is, I feel like I owe this to people because you know, I've been bringing big tech onto the streams, and some of you have had mixed feelings about it. And I want to just explain a little bit about my thought process. And then I want to show you why the big tech era is absolutely fucking over. And maybe this will just like put the nail in the coffin of the whole thing. So I became familiar with big tech back like in October, basically. I think it was September, October, something like that. When I was kind of like getting involved with like where Nick Fuentes had said something nice about me on his show. All the Groypers were starting to surround me. I got kind of pulled into different Groyper stuff with like Beardson and Wurzelroot, and then they came and they disrupted my Socialism Saturday. I got pissed off about that. There was a whole big back and forth, and then big tech kind of slid into my DMs at that time and was like, why don't you come on my show and talk to me? And I was like, okay. Like, I didn't know any of these people. Yeah. Well, this is my mistake. So I talked to him on a show, didn't really think much of it. And then, later in the year, there was some banter going on, and we had this like fake internet, like the fake internet romance sort of thing. And it was just kind of fun, and it was playful banter. And I had gone back at that time, back in December when I took kind of like my staycation. I had gone back at that time, and I had watched just a bunch of old content from Big Tech, from Politically Provoked, Brittany and Mio, from all the characters involved in like the Big Tech saga with his, because I mean, I think people know this. Thank you, Nick. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, you were right. Yeah, you guys were right. Anyway, back in December, I had gone back and watched a whole bunch of content to figure out like what the fuck actually happened with Big Tech and Cozy, because he used to be on Cozy. He used to be on Nick's platform. And then there was a lot of drama and there was a big breakup. And so I went back and watched a whole bunch of stuff because I like to know for myself what's going on. I don't want any interpretation from Brittany and Mio and Beardson. I don't want any of that. I don't even want any interpretation from Big Tech, to be honest. I want to know for myself what happened. And so I went back and I watched what the fuck caused this epic breakup at the time. And lo and behold, I 100% came down on Big Tech's side. 100%. And that hasn't changed, by the way. I think that he was screwed over by Brittany. Well, more so by Mio. Kind of by Brittany, too. Brittany, at the same time as she was screwing over Big Tech, was sending nudes to Beardson, we now know. And so, like, essentially, like, I saw what happened regarding his breakup with Cozy, and I really felt like he got a raw deal. And I have some experience with getting a raw deal on the internet. Okay, so this was something like I identified with. I was like, oh shit, the things that they did to him, they've also done to me. There's also all this stuff that like, basically the same types of trolls that have come after me were coming after him, and stuff that's happened in his personal life and regarding like his ex-wife and stuff like that. And I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to get dragged into that. Suffice it to say, I really felt like after I watched a bunch of this content, I was like, he's been through some of the same shit I have. And I understand that. And I really do feel for people who have been through that sort of thing, because there like aren't that many of us that I think understand it. And so I was like, that kind of sucks. But it was also like, an opportunity to talk to someone who had been through something similar to what I had been through and all this stuff. So, kind of fast forward, and he and I had been talking a lot, and he red pilled me on the JQ, and we're not really going to talk about that. And I was actually pretty grateful to him for that. I was pretty grateful for him for like walking me through kind of his thought process and how he sees the world, because and listen, I'm not going to try to convince anyone of anything. People can believe whatever they want. I don't really care. But like I really like when he red pilled me on the JQ, the Jewish question. Like it actually brought me a ton of peace, because I was thinking back to like to to what had happened to me with the whole Hitler went to heaven tweet, when I basically like I was trolling a little bit. I wanted to piss people off, but like when I tweeted Hitler went to heaven, literally all I meant was like there is no hell. Like I don't believe there's a dead hell exists, so no one can go there. I believe God's love is unconditional, so that means everyone gets into heaven. It doesn't really matter what they do in life. You could be the most like the whole point of it was like the worst possible person in the world can still get into heaven. And of course, that was took completely out of context, and my entire life was turned upside down, and I had just a boatload of bullshit dropped on me over like one tweet out of a 2-hour spiritual discussion getting taken out of context and just twisted to mean something it didn't mean. I never said anything about the Holocaust. I never said anything like anyway, it sucked. It really sucked. And for the longest time I was like looking at that and I was like, what the fuck did I do that was wrong? Like, what the fuck did I do to deserve that? I don't think I'm a bad person. I don't think I'm doing any of this stuff. And so when he kind of like red pilled me on the JQ, that actually brought me a bunch of peace, to be honest. It was like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. Oh, okay. Now I understand. I inadvertently kicked a hornet's nest. I didn't know what I was doing, and now I understand. And so I was actually pretty grateful to him for that. And I also knew that he and this is something he talked about publicly, so I feel like anything he says publicly I can talk about publicly. And he may not like that, but I don't really give a fuck anymore. Um so he had talked about publicly how he didn't like the content he was doing. He didn't like being sucked into like the drama and all that stuff, and he wanted to transition over to doing something else that was like more fulfilling to him. Well, good, like I have that experience too. And so like I I again, it was like one of those things. It was like I was looking at him and I'm like, I've been down the road you're going. I know where it goes. Let me help you get to where you're going. Cause I feel like I went through this whole kind of transition stage where I was doing a certain type of content and I was miserable doing a certain type of content. And so now I transitioned over into doing just these deep dives into the far left most of the time. And I'm much happier doing that. And I have a much better audience doing that. And I have much more niche doing that. And I just like, I like it so much more. And so it's one of those things where I was like, I've been down the road you're going. I know where it goes. Like, let me try to help you. And so that's kind of like why I was like hanging around, because like I can see sometimes potential in people that they can't see themselves. I think that this comes out of me being in the coaching space for so long. And I was like, on the streams I had watched of his, like there was so much good about what he was doing. I was like, this guy could actually be fucking great. Like he just needs to like decouple himself from this, but he's got to do that in his own time. So I was just kind of like hanging around trying to like support him, trying to introduce him to new audiences, trying to give him opportunities to do different types of content, all that stuff. Well, I thought, I think mistakenly, that this was like a good faith kind of like, I don't know if we call it a friendship or an allyship or whatever that was developing between him and I. I was learning a lot from him. We had some great conversations and all that stuff. And now I kind of look back on it and I was like, that motherfucker was manipulating me the entire fucking time. Maybe not the entire fucking time, but so here's essentially the too long did it read. You guys know that he and I have basically been fighting for the last fucking week. If you'll notice, there was no part 4 of the Century of the Self. We had been doing a multi-part series about the Century of the Self, where we watched 3 parts of it. In the third part, he called me a retard over and over and over again. He was completely dismissive of all the points I was making. He wasn't contributing productively to the conversation. I felt like I had to do the whole fucking thing myself and basically drag him along with me, and I was really goddamn upset at the end. I was like really upset at the end. And I was like, I like for many different reasons. Um, he didn't like that I was upset, but like he also didn't think the reason he didn't like that I was upset was not that he he was like, maybe we could have both acted a little bit better. It was not there was no acceptance of accountability on his part. None. And so he and I talked the next day privately, and I'm not going to reveal like the extent of like private conversations because I don't think that that's appropriate. But he and I talked the next day, and basically he tried to blame the whole fucking thing on me, and he tried to make me feel like I was responsible for all of it, and he wouldn't take responsibility for any of it. And even then, I'm like, I'm trying my best because I want this to be like a cordial relationship. I want this to like work out. And I'm like tiptoeing into every like I'm trying to tiptoe around this entire thing to try to find a way to smooth this over so that he and I can still have some sort of productive collaborative relationship, right? And I feel, guys, you have never seen me on my best behavior in my life, like this much in my life. I swear to God. His contribution out of that conversation was, Carlin, why don't you just be more receptive to the things that I'm saying? Why don't you just essentially, here's what he wanted. He wanted me to be like the smart girl in math class that acts dumb to get the help of the boy. He wanted me to be like the girl that's like, that knows completely how to do calculus, but then goes up to the boy in class and goes, I just don't understand the homework. Can you help me do the homework, smart boy? Like, that's what he fucking wanted from me. He wanted me to not question him at all. He wanted me to just take everything that he was saying at like face value. He wanted me to just like, yeah, well, yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Yep, I don't play that fucking game either. I have never played the stupid girl in my life. I've never been the stupid girl in my life, and I've certainly never played the stupid girl in my life in order to get the approval of a fucking boy. But that's what he wanted. And so I was kind of like, you know, if this is what is going to be required to get him to level the fuck out and act like an adult, fine, I'll play this game for a minute. So then I did the stream on my channel that you guys saw last week where I basically was like, and I did not want to do this stream, but I felt like I had to in order to calm you guys down because you guys were really pissed off at him, right? And believe me, like I heard about you guys being pissed off at him for what he pulled on that fucking stream. And so I was like, okay, if we're going to continue with this and have it be a productive relationship, I need to calm my audience down and get them to just drop it and move on. So then I did the stream from my hotel in Detroit where I was basically like, don't be mad at him, just let it go and all that stuff. Now, I didn't want, like, I'm really glad that I did the incel part of that stream because that part of the stream was really good. And I was really happy about that. I really regret doing the first part of the stream where I basically tried to put all the responsibility on myself just to get him to calm the fuck down. When I don't think I did anything wrong. And I don't think it was actually my fault. I think he came into the week 3 stream for Century of the Self, and I think he wanted to snipe at me, and I think he wanted to demean me to entertain his fucking audience. That's exactly what I think happened. And so, again, I was trying to do my very best behavior to try to smooth things out to get things back to a productive place with him. Well, let me tell you what happened after that. So he took that stream and he played the first part of it for his audience, basically to say, look, Carlin admitted that it was all her fault and it was not my fault and you should not be mad at me. Like, he played the first, but he didn't touch any of the incel part of it where I was objecting to his characterization of that. Nope, we're not going to show that to our audience. We're only going to play the first part and say, look, Carlin is saying that I did nothing wrong and I didn't, and I'm completely innocent and I did nothing wrong and so he did that. Fine, he's allowed to do whatever he wants. So that stream happened on Friday. The next day, I'm in Detroit. I'm in Detroit for AFPAC. I was really nervous about AFPAC. And you guys know this. Like I was so nervous about going to this event. I was like, I didn't know how if the Groypers were going to like me. I didn't know if they were going to accept me. I didn't know if they were going to call me names. I didn't know if it was going to be like a thing. I didn't know like what was going to happen. So I was really nervous. So earlier in the day, I had gone to lunch with Mark Meets World, who is a trans like activist, but against transing minors. And so I'd gone to lunch with someone and we had a great time. And then after the lunch, I decided to just take a walk because I knew like I wasn't feeling safe necessarily going out in Detroit, but like I was like, I'm at a really nice hotel on the waterfront. The convention center is right down the goddamn street. Like, how bad could this neighborhood be? Like, I literally just wanted to take like a couple blocks of a walk after lunch to like, just to do it. And so I left the hotel and I started walking down the street. Oh, actually, I have to go back. I have to go back. I have to tell you this part of the story. So after Big Tech did the stream where he like put used my stream to say, look, audience, Carlin is saying I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. So later that night, we had gotten into a discussion and like the discussion was one of those things that was like inconsequential. And again, it was like, and I don't even I don't even remember the subject of the discussion. What I do remember about the discussion is he again kind of defaulted to this place where he was like, Carla, just accept what I'm saying. Just listen to what I'm saying. Don't question me. Just accept what I'm saying. And I was so tired that I actually literally fell asleep with the phone in my hand in the middle of this discussion. And I was kind of like, whatever. Okay, fine. So there had been that like another like back and forth where he just wanted me to play the dumb girl and just accept whatever he was saying at face value and not question him at all. That's what I fell asleep to on Friday night. So Saturday comes around, do this lunch, and I'm going for a walk just to kind of like clear my head or whatever. Well, let me tell you what, I should definitely not have left my hotel in Detroit. And listen, I say this with like all due respect. I will never judge people by the color of their skin ever. But being in Detroit and what happened to me next made me like 100% more racist than when I entered Detroit. Because like, so I'm walking up down the streets. First of all, there's no one on the streets except for like drug addicted Black people. And we're talking like I walked 2 blocks up from my hotel and all I'm seeing are like fucking like drug users that are Black all over the streets. And I'm like, holy shit, this is not safe at all. So I turn around and I start walking back. When I'm walking back, the first thing that happened is I like, again, like there's no one else on the street. I ran into this like Black person that was doing push-ups in the middle of a sidewalk, like next to an empty parking lot. And I'm seeing this from like a block away. And I'm like, and if I stay on this path, I'm going to walk right by this person and there's no one else around. And like every part of my head was like, cross the fucking street right now. And then in my head, I'm trying to like the old liberal inside of me is like trying to override this. It's like, Carlin, it's really racist that you think you should be crossing the street right now. But I was like, no, fuck you. Cross. I had to override my liberal programming to say, cross the fucking street right now. Like every part of my survival mechanism was like, get the fuck away from this person right now. And so I crossed the street, I continued down, and I was already freaked out. And so then there's a 7-Eleven on the corner, like literally the block across the street from my hotel. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into 7-Eleven. I'm going to get like a soda and a snack. And then I'm just going to go back to my room and I'm going to sit. I'm going to wait before I pack, whatever. So I go into the 7-Eleven and that was the next mistake I made. This was the grossest 7-Eleven I've ever been in my life. It was filled with, again, Black people who kind of looked like they were on drugs. And to create a long story short, I ended up getting accosted by a fucking Black person in this 7-Eleven to the point where I was like basically running out of it and like ran back to my hotel room. And this really freaked me the fuck out. I've never had something happen to it's not like I have no experience traveling to cities. I used to travel to cities like all the time. But like I have not had the experience of being like a white girl in a fucking dingy 7-Eleven that's across the street from a really nice fucking hotel that I get accosted by a black person in the fucking 7-Eleven. Just out of fucking nowhere. I was like, what the fuck? And so I basically like ran back to my hotel and I'm in like full on fight or flight at this point. I'm just like, what the fuck just happened to me? And I was like mad at myself and I was like, you were stupid for doing this in the first place. What the fuck were you thinking? And this is just something like I always like anytime I go to a city, I always walk around the city. It's just been always been my tradition. And in this case, I really, really, really shouldn't have done it. So I go back to my hotel. My adrenaline is rushing because I just got fucking accosted in a goddamn 7-Eleven. And I like sit down and like my whole body's like that. Like I had no energy. And then I had my computer sitting right in front of me and I opened Discord and I DM Big Tech and I said, "You're going to be really proud of me because Detroit has just made me 100% more racist," or something like that. I said to him like Detroit is making me more racist, essentially. Just to try to bring some levity to the situation. Well, he ignored that entirely and he instead started continuing the argument from the previous night. And that was all he was focused on, was the fact that like I didn't agree with him from last night and he was going to keep fighting with me. And so he keeps the fight going. And I'm just like I had no energy at this point. I was just like, what the fuck is even going on? And I typed back to him. I was like, "Oh, we're still fighting. Okay." And it was one of those things where I was like, I just didn't care. And so he kept coming at me and I just kept like responding and however I responded. I don't think I was being like especially mean or anything. And he got pissed off at me again. And this is like 15 minutes after I just been accosted, right? And he's trying to start a fight with me over something stupid. And so then he says to me, because I'm not engaging in this fight that he wants me to be in, he says to me, "You're so annoying that you make me want to kill myself." And I responded to that. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then he said, "I'm telling you to leave me the fuck alone." And I was like, and this is not the first time he's spoken to me like this. And it was that moment where I was like, I've had enough. I've had enough of this. I am not the stupid fucking girl, or excuse me, the smart girl that's going to pretend to be stupid at math to get the boy to approve of me. That is not going to fucking happen. And so then I messaged him back and I said, "This isn't fun anymore. I'm out. No one speaks to me like this." And basically like laying down the law, like this is not fucking acceptable. And then I logged out of Discord and I didn't log back in for like 2 days. Not that he didn't have other ways to get in touch with me, because he does if he wants to, but that's the only way that he seems to think that, you know, he can get in touch with me, which is fine. But like, I just didn't want to, I did not want to engage in it anymore. I had just been accosted by a fucking black person in the 7-Eleven. I was hours away from going to AFPAC, in which I was really fucking nervous for. I was completely fucking spent at this point. He was trying to argue with me. He told me to fuck off. He told me to leave him the fuck alone. So I was like, you know what? Fucking fine. So I log out of Discord for 2 days. In the midst of that, I go to AFPAC and I had an awesome time at AFPAC. Like it was fucking great. Like I loved the Groypers I met. I thought that they were all so nice to me. None of them were irredeemable incels. Like he had been telling me for like weeks leading up to this. He's like, "Carlin, you're gonna see all of Nick's fans are like they're short, brown, fat incels with little dicks that can't get laid." And I was like, and I walk in and I see like, are they young men? Yeah, they're young men for the most part. There's mostly young men there, but a lot of them are like not short. Like some of them are short, but some of them are not short. Like most of them, they're just normal. They're normal looking young men. There's nothing wrong with these people. They're not incels. And they were really nice and they were really sweet and they treated me really well. And even people I had beef with in the past, everyone was getting along. And so I had a great time at the event downtown. And then I had a great time. Like we went back to the Airbnb, like one of the Airbnbs, and we're just hanging out and having beers. I had a great time there. I loved every single person I met. It was just awesome. And so I actually had a really like even with Nick's event getting shut down, even with the whole like Superman punch heard round the world at the club, and even with it was awesome. And I have nothing bad to say about it. And that's the truth. And people can think I'm simping for Nick all you want. Like, that's just the truth. I had a great fucking time. Well, this was not the experience that big tech wanted me to have. And so, like, and by the way, he had told me to go to AFPAC. When I got the invitation to be a VIP at AFPAC, I didn't think I was going to go. And there were a lot of reasons for it. But like overall, I was like, this is gonna be a really uncomfortable situation for me to be in. I'm a girl. There are so many people who dislike me. Like, is this really something I want to do? And so I had actually gone to him and I said, basically, what do you think? Should I go? And he said, yes, you should absolutely go. Same thing with Adam Green, by the way. I asked Adam Green about this. Like, what do you think about this? Yeah, you should definitely go, Carl. You should absolutely go. Well, now my understanding, or what I suspect happened, is that he thought that I was going to have a shitty time at AFPAC, and he thought that that all of the things that he had said to me were going to be confirmed. He thought that I was going to hate the Groypers. He thought that I was going to he basically told me to go because he wanted to prove something to me about Nick and prove something to me about the Groypers and like potentially like what I really think he wanted was to use me against Nick because big tech hates Nick. He does. He hates Nick. He hates the people involved with Nick. He hates all of them, and he is like to the point of being like borderline obsessed about this, which is retarded. But so what I think what went on was like, first of all, it really rubs me the wrong way that someone told me to go to an event hoping that I would have a negative experience. That really fucking rubs me the wrong way. I look back to like when I went to the Trump rally in 2020, and I remember being really nervous, like being like the Democrat that went to the Trump rally or whatever, because like I'd never been to an event like that. And I was really nervous. And I was thinking about this. I was like, could you imagine what would happen if if someone had said, yeah, Carlin, you should really go to the Trump rally because they thought that Republicans were going to be mean to me and they thought that Republicans were going to have a bad experience. He literally fucking told me to go to an event that he thought I would have a bad experience at so that he could use me in some sort of revenge thing against Nick and the Groypers. And that really pisses me off. That really pisses me off because I've been used by people before and I don't fucking like it. Well, turns out he didn't get his wish. Turns out I had a great experience. Turns out the Groypers started flirting with me on Twitter. And you know what? Listen, man, I've never had the experience of having like young men treat me like the sexy teacher that they're like flirting with. That's actually kind of fun. It's funny. Like I'm not gonna get into an illicit romance with any of the like I'm married and they know that and it's just all playing around. But like that's actually kind of like it's a funny thing and I'm enjoying it and I'm bantering with the Groypers and all this stuff. Well, let me show you, and I promise we are going to get into the real show, but I'm working out some feelings. I'm working out some feelings here. Let me show you what happened on Big Tech Stream on Monday. Now, I want people to keep in mind that he and I had been communicating on Discord. He and I, like, he had an open line to say anything he wanted to say to me in private. And the impression that that I had gotten through our communications was that maybe things were going to get just like that he was going to like. So basically I logged out of Discord after I told him that I was just out and I didn't go back for 2 days. And when I logged in on Monday evening, He had sent me like 4 messages in Discord, like respond that I just didn't see. But by the time I had logged back in to see them, he had deleted our entire messaging history. So I logged into Discord and I saw like the notifications that he had sent me messages, but I couldn't actually see what they were because he had deleted our entire months long messaging history. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, you don't trust me. And you think I'm going to use the messaging history against you, which, by the way, there was nothing in that messaging history that could actually be like embarrassing or anything like that. It's just the two of us talking back and forth. There was no sort of sexting or anything like that that went on. I want people to know that. But like there was nothing like and so like I saw that he had deleted our entire messaging history and I was like, "Oh, he's projecting to me that I shouldn't trust him." Because he doesn't trust me enough to believe that I'm not going to use the messaging history against him when PS I had told him that anything that's said to me in private stays in private. I do not reveal private messages unless I'm put into a position where I have to. And I still and even like with me telling you guys some like basic things that have gone on, I still feel like I've kept to that. You guys don't actually know some of the things we were talking about. You just know the basic mise en scène. So he did that. I was really pissed off about that because I was like, oh, wow, he never trusted me in the first place. Fine. I guess I shouldn't be. But then we started talking back and forth, and it kind of seemed like maybe when I said to him, don't talk to me like this, I kind of felt that like maybe he got it, that it was just like, maybe he can talk to other women like that. I don't know. But it just wasn't going to work for me. And, my impression of it was that things were just like softening out and maybe we'll be a little cautious. But like, if we can just get to a place where he's not screaming at me and not calling me names and not saying like, Carlin, like, I expect you to just like take whatever I say, like, blah, 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 and just like, accept it or whatever. I was like, maybe this can still be a productive thing. So he had a way to get in touch with me. He had a way to talk to me. And this is what he chose to do instead. So let's watch his stream. This is a stream from Tuesday evening. And I didn't see this stream at the time. I didn't see it until Wednesday. But I heard about it because the minute that he started doing this stream and he started talking about me, people are in my inbox saying big text saying this and that and the other thing. So let's just see what he actually said. This is his reaction to me having a good time with the Groypers.
Carlin's being part of something. She's got her wish. The Groypers are simping for the Carlin.
She has me like a Pisces when I agree.
She's blowing kisses at them.
I've been locked inside your heart-shaped box.
So this is happening. And I gotta let her go.
I've been drawn into your magnetism.
I gotta let her go for now. All right.
I wish I could eat your cancer when you turn.
We gotta let Carlin go. She's primed, okay? It's, stage 1 complete. And we don't gotta spell it all the way out, but look. She's now on her mission. She's infiltrating.
No, I'm not.
And she will. She will do what Carlin gonna do.
What he's saying and the impression that he's trying to give here is that I'm infiltrating the Groypers and that something is and I'm infiltrating Nick's inner circle because I had a good time at AFPAC and the Groypers treated me well. And so what he's trying to give the impression here is that I'm doing something to infiltrate them to really like fuck things up. And that's not true. And we're going to talk about that more, but that's what he's doing with this. And I don't fucking appreciate it.
Just think about that for a minute. I've introduced you to Carlin. We know what she's about. Now she's going to do what she's going to do. And we're going to be here waiting and watching on the sidelines. We're not going to be part of it. Okay? What she's going to do with the Groypers, we're not going to be part of it. It's going to be cool. But we're going to let her do her thing. We're going to watch and enjoy. We're going to be nice to her, even though she's, what it looks like.
And by the way, his entire chat was shit talking me the entire time. And I will say, he said we're going to be nice to her. We're going to be nice to her. Fine. His entire chat was, well, not all of them, but like people in his chat were shit talking me the entire time.
What it looks like is that she's shunned my advice. What you could say is that it looks like. And that she's joined up with Nick. And she's giving her energy to the Groypers, right? That's what it could look like. Don't treat it like that. I don't want any of you guys to treat it that way. Carlin's on a mission.
No, I'm not.
Right?
No, I'm not. No.
And she knows it.
Really? Tell me what it is.
Not exactly.
Exactly.
But also she totally knows.
No, I don't, bro. No, I don't.
So she's right where she belongs. She's cozying up to the crew over there. And that's perfect. You go, girl. You go, girl. Perfect. So we'll wait for that to. We'll just let that simmer. We'll just let that cook, as they say. You know what I mean? Think about it. Think about that. What's that cooking up over there? What kind of outcome are we cooking up? Did I play any part in that? Did I meet a girl who's sort of like the type who, when you tell her to do something, it makes her want to do the opposite? And I told her, don't do it. Told her, don't do it. It's dangerous. It won't work out.
He's trying to make this seem like and first of all, he fucking told me to go to AFPAC. So he needs to not fucking pretend that he was just doing some reverse mind fuck on me. He told me to go to AFPAC. But beyond that, I am not cozying up to Nick and the Groypers for any reason having to do with him. I started being friendly with Nick before I even knew who Big Tech was. And I never stopped being friendly with Nick. There was not a moment, even amongst all the drama with Beardson and Wurzelroot and Politically Provoked and all that bullshit, there was not one single moment between October 7th and now that I stopped being friendly with Nick. I have been on Nick's side this entire fucking time. And so for him to come in and say, Carlin, I told you not to get involved with Nick because that's going to be a really bad idea. But I did it because I wanted you to do the opposite because I'm doing some reverse mindfuck thing. There was never, ever, 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 ever a moment in which I'm only getting involved with Nick to be rebellious against what he fucking told me.
It's a bad idea. And I said, but do what you want. But I wouldn't if I was you. And what can you expect that she'll do?
Cagmike just gifted 1 subscription on Kick.
Thanks, Cag.
Yeah. We were streaming Nick content
For
long
Officer
before
Supply, you
anyone
here?
knew who he
I ain't
was.
seen you yet. Oh, you was here. Let's go. Nice. You caught a sub from the Cag. From the Cagmeister.
This had nothing to do with you.
So yeah, I mean, look. The absolute best agent is the one that doesn't even know they are one. But she does know. I'm not saying I'm using
Go
her.
fuck
I'm not
yourself.
saying don't say mind rape, okay? Don't start saying mind rape, okay? Don't start saying that. I hate it when you guys say that. I didn't do a reverse psychology on her. There wasn't any kind of covert motive. That's all bullshit. Don't say that. It's not true. Don't post that. Don't say that. It's not true. It's not. It's true. Platypoo's the real puppet master. If anybody's pulling strings around here, it's Platypoo. That's real.
Anyway, that's basically what happened on his stream. And you got to understand, it's not that he gets like a metric ton of views on his stream, but what happens in this little sphere eventually makes it around to everyone. So he knew I was going to find out about this. He probably knew I was going to find out about this relatively quickly, even though I wasn't watching it live. And he also knows that other people are going to find out about this. And he is explicitly putting a message out there to make it seem like I'm doing some fucking infiltration thing with the Groypers and that he manipulated me into doing it because I'm just a stupid, dumb woman. After all, I can't make any of my decisions for myself. Has to be because a man made the decision for me. And that's why he's doing this. So yesterday, when I should have been streaming, the reason there was no stream yesterday is I was basically messaging with him in Discord saying, what the fuck was that about? Because unlike him, I'm going to handle something privately before I take it publicly. And I'm going to try to make sure I do whatever I can. You know, he at some point, and I don't remember if it was in this stream or another conversation, but he basically talks about how like he had said to me that, you know, I'm known for creating conflict with people, but what he doesn't know and what most people don't know is that if I have conflict with someone publicly, it's going to be because I tried to handle it privately. I tried to handle it privately for a really fucking long time and it didn't work. In some cases, I literally tried to handle it privately for fucking years. In the case of James Lindsay, I tried to handle this privately for 2 fucking years before there was any conflict publicly at all. And it didn't work. And so yesterday, when I should have been streaming, I was trying to handle this privately with him to be like, what the fuck was this all about? And essentially what came out of that conversation is, Carlin, I can't talk to you if you're being friendly with the Groypers. That's his perspective. He is pissed off that I went to AFPAC, that by some miracle, the Groypers actually like me. The Groypers had fun with me. The Groypers then continued to flirt with me on Twitter afterwards because they liked me. He was pissed off that Beardson liked me, and Dalton didn't even meet me, but Dalton liked me before this. He was pissed off that no one had an issue with me, and that everyone in Nick's kind of sphere was saying, yeah, Carlin was actually really cool at this event. Which, again, no one was shocked by this situation more than me. I did not expect, this was not on my bingo card. But you know what? If I have the chance to make allies on the internet, and by the way, I enjoy those allies. Like, I think the Groypers are actually hilarious. I think they're legitimately hilarious. I think that they're good people. Like, I love this banter thing that's going on right now. I even have positive relationships with Mio and Brittany right now, at least for the moment, and God knows that may not last. But like, I fucking think with the amount of bullshit that I have been through on the internet, I deserve to have positive relationships with a group of people for once. And you know what? Maybe it will all go south. I don't know. But what I do know is that I've had a positive relationship with Nick Fuentes since October 7th. Actually, even before that, because Nick was following me on his other Twitter accounts even before October 7th. So that even started up before. But like, I have had nothing but a good relationship with Nick Fuentes. And there may be other people in the Nick Fuentes sphere, like Lucas Gage, and that's a situation that I'm handling next week, that have given me shit and given me grief. But that has nothing to do with my relationship with Nick at all. And it is my genuine desire that I don't want to be on the internet fighting with people right now. There are people that have there are people that have made my life really difficult for several years. And I just don't, like, if I have things in common with people and I have goals in common with people, and quite frankly, the goal right now of Nick Fuentes and the Groypers is a full frontal assault on the conservative movement, yo, I'm fucking living for it. Because the biggest hindrance that I have for the things I care about is not Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. They're part of the solution so far as I'm concerned. The biggest hindrance I have to achieving goals that I care about, that I've been working towards for years, is the goddamn conservative right. Because they are the ones, quite frankly, that are making it more difficult for me to do this. The conservative right are the ones that make it so hard to fight the radical revolutionary far left. And so if I can align with people who hate the conservative right as much as I do, who want to destroy the conservative establishment, who want to rebuild it in their own image. And I don't agree with everything that Nick stands for, but I do actually think that some of his ideas are interesting, and I do think that some of his ideas are a net positive over what the conservative right is currently doing. Then you know what? You put on your big boy pants and you work with people that you might align with on some issues, even if you don't align on all of them. And right now, and he might not like this, and I don't really give a fuck if he likes it or not, but Nick Fuentes is the only person in the country that is in a position to actually remake the conservative right. He has all these young people on his side. He's got all these people at Turning Point that are now looking at him and kind of listening to his message. Like, I think it's going to catch on more than people think it is, and I think it already is. The fact that Nick was able to get like 500 people out to an impromptu rally outside of Turning Point on no notice, like, you can't do that. I'm sorry. I did walkaway rallies for 6 months, every single weekend, all over the country for 6 months. There were barely 100 people that showed up at any of those rallies, except for the one in Beverly Hills. That was the biggest by far. But Nick Fuentes, any single day of the week, can turn out more people than at any walkaway rally that I ever spoke at in 2020. And that is just a fact. So not only do I personally enjoy Nick Fuentes, not only do I personally have no problem with him, not only do I think he's funny, I think he's smart, I think he's doing extremely nuanced commentary, not only do I enjoy the Groypers and bantering with the Groypers, but I actually think it is the most productive disruption that can take place on the conservative right. And if there is a productive disruption on the conservative right, that leads to something that I care about. And none of this has anything to do with him. And he wants to make it seem like I was his puppet. And he was using me to infiltrate the Groypers and to go off on the Groypers and to cause disruption for Nick. Go fuck yourself, Mike. Honest to God. Go fuck yourself. I was never anything but nice to this guy. And to have him put this stream out without talking to me, like, I felt completely thrown under the bus. Completely. And it's just like, you know what? And after what happened in Detroit, where he got all pissed off that I didn't want to talk to him anymore after he told me, you are so annoying, you make me want to kill myself. Leave me the fuck alone. Well, I left him the fuck alone, and then he got all fucking butthurt about it and pissed off and tried to do this thing where he's making it look like I'm infiltrating Nick and the Groypers to try to cause problems for me. Not fucking cool. And the reason I know that he's all butthurt about Nick and the Groypers, and we're going to get to real content soon, I promise, is yesterday, him and Adam Green did a whole Twitter space calling AFPAC DocsPAC and complaining about it, and he's lying about what happened. Like, I was fucking there. He is lying to his audience about what happened at AFPAC. He and Adam Green are cooking up this whole thing where apparently now him and Adam Green think that their biggest obstacle to getting people to leave Christianity is Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. And so now instead of just putting messaging out there, instead of Adam Green just focusing on the messaging that he's been doing, which, by the way, I actually agree with Adam Green on things, but you know what I'm not in favor of? I'm not in favor of Adam Green and fucking big tech. Oh, I am. Oh, huh? I am? Oh, wow. You're banned. Goodbye. Any big tech fans want to show themselves? I don't give a fuck. If Adam Green and big tech want to do this thing where they're going to make it seem like Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are the biggest obstacle they have to getting people to leave Christianity and acknowledge that Christianity is just like was created by the Jews in order to control the Gentiles, that's fucking retarded. That is the most retarded thing in the world. And you know what? If Adam Green and big tech just focused on messaging out and talking about why they believe what they do, you'd have no problem with me. The problem is that they're now focusing their entire energy on this like fucking imaginary energy because they're pissed off at Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. So they can do whatever they want. I've been nothing but nice to them, and I'm done. I am done. And so that's how I feel about it. He wants to throw a hissy fit, and he wants to say, I can't talk to you because the Groypers are being nice to you, Carlin. Well, you know, true colors shown, bro. True colors shown. Anyway, that is all I have on that issue, and I wanted to update people because I quite frankly, like, I really regret doing the stream last week where I told everyone, like, you know, just let it go, all this stuff. And I shouldn't have done that. And that was a lesson for me. And this is one of those times where, like, I was too fucking nice. And we are now moving on from this era. And we are refocusing back on things that I actually care about. Thank you, Rottweiler. I forgot about your super chat. I apologize. Rottweiler says, I think I was right when I said he's still stuck in his teen resentment phase and that he's a man-child with racial victim complex called it. Yeah, I wish you were wrong, but I don't think you are. No. Here's the thing. I don't want anyone to go after him. I don't want anyone to call him names. I don't want anyone to do anything. Because the fact is that he is over on Kick. He is not relevant in the worlds that I'm in. And I strongly suspect that we just won't hear from him anymore, because I don't think that his ideas about going after Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are going to do anything but be like a minor annoyance at best. So let's just move on. Anyway, now that we've done that, let's actually get into socialism. So what we're going to be watching today is a webinar from Haymarket Books. And I apologize. I didn't know that segment was going to go on for that long, guys. Yeah, well, it's like the bat signal, isn't it? It's like the bat signal. You fucking tried to use me for your ends. You tried, after I was trying to talk to you in private and being perfectly nice about it, you tried to make people think that you were pulling the strings and being this fucking puppet master, and that I'm trying to infiltrate the Groypers for some nefarious ends. That's fucking with me and what I care about, and I don't fucking appreciate it. And I was perfectly nice to you yesterday, and I gave you every opportunity, and what it ended with was, Carlin, I can't talk to you if the Groypers are talking to you. I can't talk to you if the Groypers like you. That's bullshit, bro. That is absolute bullshit. So you can cry all the tears you want. You had every opportunity to talk to me in private. You had every opportunity to talk to me like an adult, and you goddamn refused. Now, let's move on to socialism, shall we? We are going to be watching a webinar from Haymarket Books called Solidarity, discussing the past, present, and future of a world-changing idea. Pop quiz for the chat. What does solidarity mean? Why do we think solidarity is important? Simona, thank you for the super chat. I do really appreciate it. What does solidarity mean, and why do we think that solidarity is important? Solidarity being something that big tech do not, and I do not have anymore. But that's fine. That's fine. The purpose of solidarity is to be a good comrade, be part of the collective. Solidarity means socialist unity. Solidarity means working together towards a common goal, something that perhaps big tech and his audience could learn about. Solidarity means being a part of the communal group to fight against capitalism. They're part of the collective. It defines their organization. Solidarity, meaning we are the Borg. There are no differences. I know, I feel a little rusty on socialism too. We've been a little bit distracted lately. We got to get back into it. Solidarity means collectivism, part of the collective. Community, I like how you put that. Intifada. Intifada means worldwide socialist revolution. Those who are in solidarity are fighting for a worldwide intifada. One of us, exactly, Kelly. Solidarity is less than charity. Yep, exactly. It's the struggle for the revolution. Exactly. So this is a webinar that was done not too long ago, on about a week ago, June 13th. Solidarity is often invoked, but it is rarely analyzed and poorly understood. In this event, leading activists and thinkers will discuss the past, present, and future of the concept across borders of nation, identity, and class to ask, how can we build solidarity in an era of staggering inequality, polarization, violence, and ecological catastrophe? In their recently published book, Solidarity, Leah Astra offer a lively and lucid history of the idea from ancient Rome through the first European and American socialists and labor organizers. So we're going to be watching this webinar, and we're going to be learning what solidarity means to them. Also, there is a little advertisement for the socialism conference at the beginning of this that I thought was actually really interesting to see. And so we are going to be watching that as well. Andrew, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I really do appreciate it. Before we get into that, guys, I want to make sure people know that I have finally, at long last, and I apologize that it took so long, I have finally, at long last, posted the third part of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto podcast. So you can go and listen to part 1, 2, and 3. The Gender Accelerationist Manifesto is part of this deep dive that we're doing into queer anarcho-communist literature, where I'm reading and analyzing queer anarcho-communist literature that you are not going to find anywhere else. And this is one of the documents that is really driving a lot of the gender activism today. And it is crazy. It's crazy, 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 crazy. And I want to make sure everyone has a chance to listen to it. This is part of the Inner Circle podcast, which is my supporter-only podcast over on the Substack, Carlin, Karlyn, unwoke.substack.com, and you can find that by heading over there, signing up for $8 a month, $80 a year. There are 3 parts to it. It's about almost 2 hours long worth of content, I think, where I'm both reading the podcast, the document, and analyzing it. The PDF is also available if you just want to download it and read it yourself. But of course, the podcast has my additional analysis and stuff like that goes along with it. And of course, all of this does go to support the work I'm doing and does keep me in business. Terry says, the best Substack available. Well, I do appreciate that, Terry. Thank you for the compliment. And so you can find that over on carlin.substack.com right now. And like I said earlier, I really apologize for not being so consistent with my content, guys. I feel like I've kind of let my core supporters down. I'm going to be much more consistent going forward. We're going to get back into it. And that's going to be that. Why did I call Nick gay? Well, look at the date on that, bro. That was back in 2021. That was 3 years ago, and I've already disavowed it. So you can go away now. You want to cause problems in my chat. As a reminder for anyone that's new here, the rules in my chat are: number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. If you do, you're going to get a timeout at first. And then if you keep doing it, you're going to be banned. We have a really low tolerance for people shitposting and causing problems in the chat because we are here to learn. We are not here to coddle your feelings. We are not here to listen to you whine and cry or any of those other things. On that note, rule number 2, no whining. I don't want to hear it. I don't have kids for a reason. If you're not here to learn, you can go and watch something else. Now let's dig into our real show of the day. We're going to be watching Solidarity from Haymarket Books and find out what's what. I want you guys to see the commercial for the Socialism Conference. Hang on. Check this out.
The Socialism Conference is
the one I went
place
to
in this
last
country
year.
where we meet people who are involved in movement work, activist work on the ground in communities all across the country.
What I really love about Socialism Conference is that it's a space to be in community with other socialists, be in community with other people who are thinking about how do we actually build a movement for revolutionary and radical change in the world, and also just to have fun and hear about some of the work that each other is doing, to be inspired.
There is nothing that recreates the experience of being in Rome and being able to fellowship, being able to share ideas, being able to feel each other's presence in the physical form. It allows for a different level of connection. It allows for energetic vibrations that can't be captured via Zoom or via teleconference.
I might be. You should try to find
for
me.
us to meet like-minded people. While we have a million differences, we're all in the struggle to make a better world, to make a world of balance and peace and justice and joy. And I find comrades here every time I...
Bill Ayers. That's Bill Ayers. He was in the Weather Underground. He is a terrorist. Am I planning on going this year? No. No, I kind of decided, listen, man, I tempted fate going last year. They preemptively banned me from the conference last year, and I still went anyway under a fake name. So and then I recorded all their stuff and I released it, and they weren't too happy about that. And so I feel like I would really be tempting fate if I went this year. So no, confirmed. I will not be undercover at the Socialism Conference this year. That doesn't mean other people won't be undercover at the Socialism Conference this year. It just means it won't be me. Don't worry, we're coming up with a plan.
It's a place where we can dream about abolition and think about how we're going to create campaigns, how we're going to deconstruct the state while we're simultaneously creating the communities and care we need for all to survive and thrive.
If you are in any form of radical politics, movement building, art practice, facilitation, healing, and restorative work, I don't know of another gathering that happens like this that puts those entities together. And it's not just an elitist conference. A lot of times you can go to a space like this and there's a lot of top line names and everyone else feels like an audience. But here, this feels like a community co-learning and interacting with each other.
If you are a person that's trying to figure out how we can prioritize putting people over profit instead of profit over people, if you're a person that believes in racial justice and the social good, socialism might be a place where you could find your folks.
If you believe that we deserve a world where people are cared for, where people's needs are met, and where people can truly self-determine, Socialism is a conference for you. This space will help connect you to those people for you to grow and build with for years to come.
If anyone wants to go undercover at the Socialism Conference, please let me know. We can always use more than one person to help us infiltrate their entire event. I will teach you exactly how to do it. It's really
I don't
not that hard.
understand how we can ultimately dismantle any of it if we don't stick to it.
Hang on, let's fast forward over this. This is their commercial.
For
We don't need to see this. I don't need to see Haymarket Books commercial.
We are able.
It's been a while since
Where
we
is
watched
there a
Haymarket.
glimmer it's coming from me, just in my own surroundings? Like where is there a glimmer of hope? And this book does that for me. And I hope that it would do it for you too, if you have not already read it. It gives us some light in the darkness. So I want to thank Astra and Leah personally for writing this book. It is so thoroughly researched. It is grounded in history, and it really gives us a vision for moving forward. So you get 3-in-1 here with this book. So that's my own spiel, but now I want to give you the publisher's spiel about the book. Leah Hunt Hendricks and Astra Taylor offer a lively and lucid history of the idea, from ancient Rome through the first European and American socialists and labor organizers, to 21st century social movements like Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter, tracing the philosophical debates and political struggles that have shaped the modern world. Looking forward, they argue that a clear understanding of how solidarity is built and sustained, and an awareness of how it has been suppressed, is essential to warding off the many crises of our present: right-wing backlash, irreversible climate damage, widespread alienation, loneliness, and despair. So for the event tonight, I'll be asking them some questions, but we're also going to open the floor for the audience to ask questions as well. But before we do that, I want to get into the background of these brilliant authors. Leah Hunt Hendricks is an organizer and writer who works on economic inequality and democracy. She is co-founder of the Solidaire Network and Way to Win, networks of progressive philanthropists that support social movements and electoral politics, respectively. She received her PhD from Princeton University in religion, ethics, and politics, where she wrote her dissertation on the ethics of solidarity. So we got the expert right here, okay? Astra Taylor is a writer, documentary filmmaker, and political organizer. Her books include the American Book Award winner, The People's Platform, Taking Back Power and Culture in a Digital Age, and
Well, Big Tech has made it very clear to me that he does not intend to finish part 4 of the documentary, and that he cannot communicate with me at all as long as the Groypers like me. This is literally the conversation I had with him yesterday. So if you you need to take this up with him, because I tried to figure out a way to work civilly with him. And what I got from him, Map, was, Carlin, I can't communicate with you when the Groypers like you. And I was like, what the fuck do you want me to do about that? I didn't expect this. How should I have handled this? And I got nothing. So if you have an issue, go take it up with him.
democracy may not exist, but we'll miss it when it's gone. Her films include What is Democracy and Examined Life. Her 2023 book, The Age of Insecurity, Coming Together as Things Fall Apart, was part of the CBC Massey Lecture Series. She is an advisor to Lux Magazine, on the editorial board of Hammer and Hope, and a co-founder of the Debt Collective, the world's first debtors union. So my first question is, Astra, where do you even find the time? Like, how are you so able to do this and come here looking good? Okay, so that's actually not the first question. The first question is really, I want to start us off with a bit of a vision exercise, and something that hopefully our audience can think about too. When you envision a world where solidarity is the widespread worldview, unlike the worldview we have now, where capitalism.
They just said, I already said capitalism. We're going to rewind that. Can you envision a world where solidarity is the widespread worldview? What that means is global socialism.
Off with a bit of a vision exercise, and something that hopefully our audience can think about too. When you envision a world where solidarity is the widespread worldview, unlike the worldview we have now, where capitalism has run amok, where individualism is the idea of the day, what does that world look like?
Individualism is the ideal of the day. That's because these are socialists, these are collectivists. They don't value the contribution of the individual. They want the individual to assimilate to the collective Borg. When the individual assimilates to the collective Borg, that is what solidarity means. You are not being abused in the chat. You are whining in the chat and you are causing problems in the chat. If you want to be here to learn, you are welcome to stay here to learn, but you are not welcome to whine and complain.
And we can start with either of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Malika, for that wonderful introduction, and to Haymarket and everyone here for joining tonight. It's great to be with you all. That's such a great question. I think that, well, you've hit on the purpose of the book, which is to propose that we actually bring solidarity back as a key principle, key value of democracy and of the kind of society we're trying to build. So just like justice, liberty, equality, we are arguing that solidarity should be up there in the pantheon of ideals. It's not just a catchword, something you sign your emails with in solidarity, something you throw around. We think it's a really important value. And the French Revolution had liberty, equality, fraternity. It had this relational concept, and some of our book goes into the history of that time in France in the 1800s, how the idea of fraternity sort of morphed into the idea of solidarity, and then got picked up by the labor movement. And but it didn't really transfer to the United States, and it never really quite made it into that pantheon. And so that's what we're arguing, is that it needs to be there. We need a concept about to sustain democracy, we need to actually think about the relationships between people and the fabric of our relationships. And this is actually a kind of a confrontation to a lot of liberal political theory over the past half century or longer, which tried to create a theory of justice, a theory of democracy that didn't depend on good relationships between people. It was very procedural, and tried to create a good society regardless of how people felt about each other. And I think that project failed. And so we and that's part of why we're falling apart. And so to your question of what would it look like, I think there would be more participation, more participatory democracy. Democracy is not just something you do every 2 years at the ballot box, 2 years or 4 years. People would be participating.
If there was more solidarity, there would be more democracy. That's because when socialists say democracy, what they really mean is socialism.
Unions, in other local organizations where they had a say over their lives, over the conditions that they were living in. It would be a society that prioritized having public goods that everyone could use and participate in regardless of their income or wealth. It would be a society that that I think just really valued the relationships between people, obviously prioritized gender justice, multiracial justice, and also climate, understanding the fact that we are integrated together in we are fundamentally interdependent, and especially interdependent with the climate, with the nature around us, and that we're just kind of all in this together. It's like we all survive or we all don't, and would kind of prioritize that collective condition.
Yeah. Now, Astra, before you answer, I actually want to tweak it a little bit. It's the same question, but given what Leah said in terms of justice and democracy, just kind of in a vacuum, not really creating that world that we might ultimately envision. Again, what is your ultimate vision, and why is solidarity unique where it might get us there better than just, you know, justice and democracy in this liberal framework.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to thank you for your amazing introduction. Thank you for being here. And I want to shout out your book and recommend that people get it. It's Not You, It's Capitalism is brilliant.
It's not
and
you,
so everyone
it's
should check that out because it's also
capitalism.
part of the picture. It's part of the whole, you know.
Can someone look that book up, please? It's Not You, It's Capitalism. Can we get a screenshot of that cover?
Theory that we need to all grasp. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, Leah said a lot of it, but what solidarity brings to the table again is this relational thing. Solidarity is something that happens between people, between groups. And we've been trying to theorize democracy within this liberal framework without paying attention to that, right? Because it's been founded on this myth of the, individual, rational, of course, coded white, coded male, coded able-bodied subject. And so that's actually been the democratic toolkit.
Wait, the individual, rational, coded white, coded male, coded able-bodied. So they just so capitalism is interchangeable with individualism. We know that because individualism upholds meritocracy. They don't like meritocracy either. And then they're saying that being white, being male, or being able-bodied is also code for assimilating to like the capitalist construct. Did everyone catch that? One more time.
Individual, rational, of course, coded white, coded male, coded able-bodied subject.
When they're saying coded, they're the ones that are doing the coding. They're trying to make it seem like everyone else is doing the coding. They're the ones that are doing the coding. They're the ones that are saying being white is synonymous with capitalism, being male is synonymous with capitalism because of the gender binary and the patriarchy, being able-bodied, aka not disabled, they call it CRIP. This is disability studies is under queer theory. So you're an able-bodied person, therefore it's kind of like able-bodied is not the same as queer. Yeah, we're getting all coded up today, indeed.
And so that's actually been the democratic toolkit that it's not just like academics using it. I mean, this is the way people who become influential figures in our society are trained to think. And so, but there's no society without relations. There's no life without relations. And so I think that's part of what solidarity at its most basic does. I mean, solidarity at its most basic is group. It's kind of the stuff that holds groups together. We can talk more about our theorization of solidarity. So Leah and I distinguish between what we call reactionary solidarity, which is sort of negative group cohesion, and transformative solidarity, which is powerful world-changing solidarity. But I mean, the idea of relationship is so key because this sounds maybe a little hippy-dippy, but it's also scientific. We are, none of us are individuals. We are interdependent with each other, with the natural world. And so solidarity and the way that we talk about it in the book is actually the recognition of that, of the fact that we are bound to other people, we are bound to the planet, and a more solidaristic world would have that sort of at the center of the framework. And the center.
Hang on, I need to get a clip of this. Let me set up my clippy clip tool. Configure recording. One sec. Come on, ScreenFlow, configure recording. There it is. Okay. Record. All right, I need to get a clip of her saying that like this is about like the individual, well, the opposite of individual. One sec. Don't you dare fuck up, ScreenFlow. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Ah! Fucking hell! Why is my ScreenFlow not working anymore? One more time. Restart. There's no reason this shouldn't work. Record. Damn it. I must have to do an update or something to ScreenFlow. Let me get it. Oh, wait, no, it's going. Never mind. No one touch anything.
This sounds maybe a little hippy-dippy, but it's also scientific. We are, none of us are individuals. We are interdependent with each other, with the natural world. And so solidarity and the way that we talk about it in the book is actually the recognition of that, of the fact that we are bound to other people, we are bound to the planet, and a more solidaristic world would have that sort of at the center of the framework, and the center of its sort of, philosophy, and would manifest that in all sorts of policy ways. So we lay out our idea for what we call a solidarity state, but fundamentally it's about caring for those relations instead of, pretending that we're cordoned off, or creating a system that's founded on exploitation and violence and accumulation. So I think, it's so striking now that I have this lens, thanks really to Leah, who brought this idea to the table. Because I've written about democracy. I made a film about democracy, and I was just putting solidarity in there, like at the end, like, oh yeah, some solidarity would be nice. I mean, it is actually a precondition of an egalitarian functioning society, and it has really gotten short shrift,
Yeah, and what I loved about the book is that
a solidarity state. You guys catch that? Hang on, let me just make sure I have this recording saved. Don't let me down screen flow. I believe in you. You can do it. Okay, I got the recording. Thank God. A solidarity state.
The history of that. Like, it's not something that we just started saying in 2016 or 2020 or, among some lefty hippy dippy people in the last 20 years. This is something that is centuries in the making, and it's not unnatural to how people have thought about the world, even though I would say in a lot of, mainstream Western thought, it's foreign or unique or something that other people do, but it's not something that Westerners do. So I just love that you show that it has those roots in history, with a lot of philosophers abiding by it. So along with that, a common theme throughout the book is that solidarity is distinct from unity. Because I think if we just think about it in layman's terms, yeah, solidarity sounds like, oh, we're all alike and we just all get along. Can either of you talk about why it's different and why that distinction is important?
Yeah, this is something we're pretty adamant about. I mean, we do a lot of solidarity is not this, it's not this, it's not that, to clear the kind of conceptual field. But solidarity is not unity is really central. And that because, unity is cohesion without difference, right? President Biden loves to give talks where he's saying, we need to have unity, we need to unite. And it's a way of, papering over the real, disparities, the real political differences, and the real challenges that we face. So solidarity for us is relations across difference. And that's also part of why it's such an important concept to really think about, because we need to be able to build relationships across difference. I mean, day to day, Leah and I are most concerned with how we can help in some small way build a multiracial, multi-generational, multi-geographic movement that can fight for change. So we need to figure out how to build bridges across difference. And so solidarity, I think, is a concept that can help us do that. If you go back to this long tradition of thought out of which the concept evolved that we trace, we go back to these philosophers in the 1800s into the early 1900s, sort of right there in the Industrial Revolution, who were asking questions about how society could stick together, how society could hold together in a period of incredible tumult. Again, rapid industrialization, also a move into a different political form, away from feudalism into more democratic structures. So how does the world hold together in the absence of God or king? And they started talking about solidarity as an idea that could be this glue. And a metaphor they used was of the human body. The human body has all these different parts. We have eyes, we have a neck, we have knees, we have a spleen, we have lungs, and all of these parts are kind of whole, but it's not, it's not unified, it's homogeneous. And so I think there's kind of a really interesting sort of philosophical history there, but I think there's also a political ideal that we think is really important, which is we're not asking everyone to be exactly the same. And that's both a reflection of reality. We're not the same. We have to figure out how to work together. And also we shouldn't be the same. There's something kind of authoritarian and dogmatic and really reductive about that anyway, that I think Leah and I are both just kind of allergic to.
Leah, did you want to add anything to that in terms of why that distinction between unity and solidarity is important?
I think Astra covered it. I think she covered it.
Okay, so let's get into the origins of this book, because I thought it was really fascinating hearing about both of your backgrounds. So I'd love for you to share what brought you two together and how did you decide to write this book? Leah, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, I can start. Well, so as you mentioned in my bio, I come from a family that has an interesting history, actually has an oil company in Texas. So I was raised kind of in the middle of a pretty Republican family. Also, but my mom was a progressive philanthropist in the women's movement, friends with Gloria Steinem, and very involved in funding the women's movement. She was amazing. But I, for a long time, was struggling with wealth inequality as just like a fundamental injustice in society. Also climate, kind of where our family got its wealth. And so trying to figure out like what was my role in society. And we all just start from where we start. You can only kind of be who you are. And to me, as I got more involved in kind of social movements, I did feel like, as I learned about class privilege and my role was really to be in solidarity. It was not necessarily to be the person who figured out the best strategy or led at the barricades, because partly given kind of where I came from, but to really be like an accomplice and a comrade. And so I got involved in progressive organizing and then in Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street started when I was in graduate school. And I was actually writing a dissertation on social movement. And I had started writing on the concept of solidarity when Occupy Wall Street started. I had chosen the topic because I would hear the concept, I would hear the word, and when I would go to the library and look in the stacks, there was nothing really there. There were books on the history of the Polish solidarity movement, and a few books kind of on distinctions between like social solidarity versus political solidarity, but very, very academic. And it just felt like this was, a field that needed to be fleshed out. And so I was writing, my dissertation was very narrow, very focused on kind of the history in the 1800s, a few philosophers talking about this. But then Occupy Wall Street started, and I met Astra there. And over the next years, we began kind of organizing together. I was a huge fan. I am a huge fan of the Debt Collective. I think it's just a genius strategy for how to organize people in the age of financialization. And I've just been a huge admirer of her work. And I think at some point she was like, Leah, this dissertation, let's get this idea out into the public. And I was like, well, maybe if you help me, if we can do it together, then let's do it. So we wrote an article in 2019 in the New Republic, and then kind of during COVID decided to write the whole book. And because, COVID was one of those times when you would think that there would be this kind of natural sense of solidarity facing this massive collective crisis. And that didn't happen. And if anything, it was the opposite. It was this massive moment of polarization. And so it felt really important to write a book about how solidarity is not something like we have a lot of key points in the book, but one of them is that solidarity is not something that's just given. It's not something that you just find lying around. It's any kind of solidarity, even the solidarity of a family, I would say, is made through activity and time spent on relationships. And so solidarity is something that we need to actively construct. And it just felt like this more than any time before, this is a moment when we need to understand.
So solidarity is something we need to actively construct, which means that it is not the natural state of human beings. It is a manufactured artificial state.
And that, and when we need to start really doing that work. So that was the purpose of the book.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned COVID, because I've had those same thoughts about how this should be a unifying, or maybe not unifying, but at least a principle where people can find some solidarity, because there are similarities in terms of this virus that is universal. And it was so disappointing to see just how the opposite it was in our culture. So I have a question about that I'm going to ask later, but I also want to give Astra the opportunity to add to this if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, just to say that I think, you know, part of the book's genesis too is just the decade of really serious organizing that Leah and I both did after Occupy. And I mean, Leah's brilliant and brought this really interesting dissertation. I was really honored to be invited into this process of thinking together. But so much of our thinking really is rooted in organizing and like what we've learned over the years trying to do with that. And so I think this book sits at an interesting intersection of theory and practice, and just trying to show how much intellectual work is actually done in movements, how much thinking needs to be there. And you know, and for me, part of what made Leah such an exciting writing partner was like, she's, you know, she doesn't toot her own horn very much, but like there's so many movements that have changed the political landscape that she's been part of, and kind of, you know, has been a strategist in. And so I think, you know, working with someone who also is at that intersection of, you know, really gets into nerdy, like ancient philosophy, but then also is like, hold on, how do we build power and like fight the bad guys today? Is a great mix. Like, and you're also, you know, I mean, I think that's like my favorite combination.
I would agree in terms of that interpretation and how I read it, because it gets into some really like deep history that's like super niche that I just never would have known about. But then there's also this beautiful writing, and it's powerful and it's evocative and moving. You know, like there were times where I wanted to cry, and I was like, oh, I was screenshotting stuff. I was like, it was an excellent balance. So thank you for offering that to us. So thinking about this COVID example and how there is a part of us where we are interdependent, but then there's this part of us that's individualistic, especially in the West, especially in the US. And you talk about, speaking of this history early in the book, you talk about the people who practice and philosophize around solidarity, these solidarists, and they view dependency as fundamental to our humanity. So I want to know, what was it about the United States where that got lost and hyper individualism took over? Like there's individualism all over, but the US is like an extreme case. As we saw with COVID, it was so ridiculous. So what is it, you guys both study history and movements, what is it about the US where we lost that interdependence?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we never had it, right? I mean, this is the thing about the United States is that, you know, there's not some democratic interdependent past we can restore, right? We're trying to birth that into being, because this is a country.
There's not some democratic interdependent path that was like, we have to birth that democratic interdependent path. That's because the United States was not founded as a socialist country. It was founded as a country on individualism and meritocracy, which is the exact opposite of what these people want.
Country founded on the dispossession of indigenous people, on the enslavement of people stolen from Africa, on, you know, the disenfranchisement of poor white men, of women. So we're trying to create that solidaristic, interdependent consciousness. You know, it's funny being on a Haymarket Zoom, because early on, and it might even have been March, I don't know, of 2020, I was on one of the early iterations of this with Kianga Yamada Taylor and Naomi Klein. And we were still in that moment of the pandemic is a portal. We're going to have all of this learning. And in some ways we did, but there was also, there were people organizing for the opposite. And I think this is one of the key points of our book, which is that solidarity is not our natural state, and but division is also not our natural state. It takes time, money, and energy to organize people in different directions. And a lot of work was put into atomizing folks during the first, tumultuous COVID wave. And a lot of energy spent, in fostering the fears and insecurities and kind of conspiracy theories that have taken over. And so I think we want to, recognize the sort of labor that involved. And there's just along, we have a chapter called Divide and Conquer that details different ways in which solidarity is sabotaged and has been since the genesis of this country through the legal regime that began in the colonial era by outlawing labor organizing, from the history of racial separation and segregation, to the culture of capitalism, which encourages competition and a sense of scarcity and again individualism. So we're
the culture of capitalism that encourages competition and scarcity and a sense of individualism. Do you guys know, and some people might know this, but newer people might not, when I went undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference, and Haymarket Books is the organization that puts that conference on, there was a whole section of board games in which they took like normal board games like Monopoly and they made socialist versions of those games. And in socialist board games, everyone wins. And it's not really a game where you're competing against each other. It's more a game of like, how do you work together to get an outcome? And so it's not really a very fun game to play. But then they take those games and they have these daycare programs that they put kids in, or these childcare programs at all their meetings and stuff like that. And they take the non-competitive board games that they've ripped off of the good board games, and they play those with kids to teach them not to be competitive with each other. Yeah, exactly. Bot says socialism ruins all the fun. Exactly.
We're working against huge historical trends that are self-consciously aligned against solidarity. And so that moment, I think that initial wave of COVID was mixed, because there was a lot of solidarity. But there was, again, this is also this tremendous effort to undermine it. I would recommend a book by a sociologist called 2020 that just came out that looks at COVID, and also, of course, does more detailed kind of comparisons of the United States versus other countries, because not every country did as badly as this one. And so it definitely is not just human nature. It's something about our political and economic system.
Yeah, thank you for that. Leah, would you like to add as well?
Only to just kind of reiterate that I think it's not that Americans crave belonging, crave solidarity. We have a lot of the reactionary form. People are kind of coming together in ways that are exclusionary. But I think a lot of it also has to do with we have very elitist foundations. Aziz Rana has a new book out on the Constitution, and we have a very elitist Constitution. And it's that kind of the economic power that we've let kind of flourish, the economic inequality that we've let flourish in America has created kind of a tool to break solidarity. Because breaking solidarity is what you need to sustain the power of a small elite group. So I would kind of locate our problem in the kind of oligarchy, the plutocratic nature of American society.
Yeah, one thing really quick to add to that. I mean, I think we put in the book that there's this idea, right? There's just something about Americans. They don't want to we don't have a labor party. We don't really have as robust labor unions. And the, sort of early decades, at the beginning of this country's history, people in the United States were actually more active. There were more strikes. There was more resistance against predatory employers. What sets the U.S. apart is not the sort of character of its people and their compliance or their eagerness to not have labor representation, but it's actually our legal regime. It's just how hostile to organization, to unionization, the laws that govern us are. That's what makes us exceptional. And so I think it's that's sort of a similar thing here. It's not that there's just something wrong with us, but that we're fighting entrenched systems. And this is why it's just incumbent on us that we organize really intensely and really smartly.
Mm-hmm. And building off of that. Oh, go ahead, Leah. Yeah.
And for policy solutions, we need the PRO Act. We need to change our labor law so that to let people organize. Right now, solidarity strikes are.
Remember, guys, socialists control all the unions. All the unions. The Revolutionary Communists of America are actively utilizing the unions to organize. And I know some of you are forced to be members of unions, but just keep it in mind, they are in control of all this stuff. And the stronger the unions get, the stronger the socialists get.
Illegal. So yeah, but go ahead, Malika.
Yeah. So I mean, just thinking about it as my college professors would ask us, why is that? Why did our legal system, just a lot of whys, what is behind our legal system being as stringent and as anti-labor as it is? If you have any thoughts about that. If not, I can ask another question.
Well, I mean, I think there's just all sorts of, structures, the structure of the US political system. We have two-party winner-take-all elections, there really isn't a sort of political, proportional representation has its problems too. I mean, there's not really sort of one panacea to the complex problems that we're talking about, except building solidarity. That is the answer. And also the, incredible role of money in politics in the US system. We're also exceptional in that respect too. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this is why we have to study history to answer these whys. How have a sort of plutocratic few been able to amass so much wealth and the power that wealth buys? And that's, one other way that this war on solidarity is being waged, right? So why is it now
the war on solidarity
criminal to teach U.S. history in a way that draws attention to some of these founding inequities? And that's because
so you're telling me that socialists are using U.S. history class in K through 12 public schools in order to teach solidarity. Pretty much what she just said, right? Why would you be upset about laws against critical race theory in public schools if you weren't using critical race theory to teach solidarity? Again.
That this war on solidarity is being waged, right? So why is it now criminal to teach U.S. history in a way that draws attention to some of these founding inequities? And that's because we start figuring out, why is this country the way it is? So I think the answer is found in history. Capitalism as an economic system is one that concentrates wealth and power, and that's and it puts up a lot of obstacles to building the kind of solidarity that we're talking about. And the U.S. political system is just the Constitution, as Leah said, is a critical component of this. But our system has all of these sort of minoritarian veto points. The Electoral College, which overrides the popular vote. Why is that there? Well, because of a deal with slave-owning folks in the South. The malapportioned Senate, which gives disproportionate weight to rural states, to rural land, not even people, because it's not a population-based system. The way that our Congress is gerrymandered. I mean, we don't have an affirmative right to vote in the Bill of Rights. We only have negative liberties in this country. There are so many sort of foundational things in the American political system that actually are kind of affirmative action for the far right, which is ironic because they hate affirmative action when it's for anyone else. But that's the chessboard. And the more power you have, the easier it is actually to amass more power and change the rules, to change those laws and regulations. And that's why we do have a chapter that's what would it be like to embed transformative solidarity into our political system? What would it be like? We're trying to do a thought experiment that's not totally pie in the sky. It's kind of what would be like a step beyond the welfare state that would put solidarity at the center, because in a way, our political system is minoritarian. It is elitist and is about breaking solidarity in the sense of breaking kind of popular representation, the ability of ordinary people to collectively wield their power.
Mm-hmm. I think, oh, go ahead, Leah, sorry. Mm-hmm. I was just going to, go ahead.
I would just add that, you know, people sometimes think, oh, America's problem is that it's too diverse. It's not, you know, we can't be Scandinavia because we're too much of a melting pot. But we really argue against that. We think that that there are lots of examples where that is not a problem. The problem is the divide and conquer strategies of the elite. And I think it's really important because I think even in a moment, you know, as heated as now, when you're talking to family or people.
Hang on. See, and this is the problem with what big tech did. And this is why I had to address it publicly. Because now, because of the stream that big tech did, making it seem like I'm being some sort of manipulated puppet, and that the only reason that I'm going like with Nick and the Groypers is because I'm some sort of spy. This is the question that's going to be asked, which is exactly what big tech wanted when he did that stream the other day. Is it true you're pretending to cozy up to Nick and the Groypers as a spy? No. People are talking about it in a group chat, and you've always seemed open and honest, so I figured I ask. Tell the people in a group chat that there is absolutely no truth to the fact that I'm cozying up to Nick and the Groypers as a spy. I have been cool with Nick since right after October 7th, and even before that, to be honest about it. And I genuinely enjoyed my time at APAC. I genuinely enjoyed my time with the Groypers. My community would know, because I would have told them in private that if I was cozying up to them. But this is the fucking problem with what big tech did. And this is why he did it. And this is like so fucking not cool. I can't even say. Like, for once, for the first time in years, literally goddamn years, I have people on the internet that I think are hilarious, that I think are correct in what they're doing, that I think are effective in what they're doing. I don't agree with Nick and the Groypers on everything. I have some very strong disagreements with them, but by and large, they are going in the direction that I want things to go in, because they want to burn down the conservative movement and rebuild it in their image, and I'm on board with that, man. I really am. The conservative movement is one of the biggest hindrances to all of us getting what we want. And the fact that by some miracle, I was able to have like a really positive experience at AFPAC, even with all of the nonsense, even with the event getting canceled and the VIP thing getting, us getting kicked out of that venue. I was able to have a really positive experience with everyone I met. I liked everyone I met. I had a good time. I had no issue with anything until some asshole started spread that I trusted. And listen, man, I was never going to choose between Big Tech and Nick Fuentes. I said this from the very beginning. I was not going to choose between the two of them. I knew they had beef. I knew they didn't like each other, fine. But I was always taking the position, I'm not going to choose. I like Big Tech. I like Nick. I wasn't involved in any of their beef. I wasn't going to choose until Big Tech forced me into a position of needing to when he did a stream making it seem like a puppet master spy. I am married, so I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I will not be going out on a date with Beardson, no, because I am married, but I'm sure that Beardson will be able to find a very nice girl. I thought Beardson had a girlfriend or something. Yeah, it's almost like Big Tech is so pissed off that I had a positive experience at AFPAC when he did not want me to have a positive experience at AFPAC, that he is trying to ruin everything.
People who are Trump supporters or something like this, the tendency is to feel like they're the enemy. Your enemy is kind of all around you. But we actually sort of argue that it's a very few people who are using divide and conquer tactics to stoke that conflict and to set us against each other. We draw on a lot of Ian Henny Lopez's work on race class narrative, and who argues that the elite are using often racial kind of racial stereotypes or tools. We see it some recently, I feel like, in the sort of crime debates in San Francisco and elsewhere, as ways to wedge people against each other and turn them against each other. And but if we get stuck at that level, we're kind of playing on their turf. And so it takes real intellectual work to kind of step back and be like, oh wait, no, this is a game that is being like set up around us, and we need to look at what's happening, and actually turn our attention to the Rupert Murdochs, the Elon Musks, the the people who are actually kind of setting the frames of the debates to pull us apart.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think it goes to, I guess, what's unspoken but maybe assumed about the book is that we're not going to get to where we want with a world that's thriving, with people who are thriving, if we do not come together. Like, why is this important? Because it won't happen otherwise. Even though they're a minority, they have the most wealthy in the world who are using these divisions or creating these divisions and using them as wedges against us. They have been able to amass so much wealth and so much power because they've just been persistent.
The tweet where I said that Nick is gay is 3 years old, and quite frankly, it was after you guys had been haranguing me for a while, and I was pissed off. And I also posted a reply to that tweet yesterday saying, disavow, I shouldn't have said this. So everyone needs to move the fuck on. You guys used to be little assholes to me, okay? But 3 years have gone by, and you guys always knew that I called Nick gay. But, like, things have changed. We're all moving on. I don't think Nick is gay. Nick and I are cool, so far as I know, but that tweet is 3 years old.
And consistent with it, and sometimes and often violent. Like, these aren't innate, these aren't things that are innate to humanity. So if we want to have a better world, we have to come together. Like, we got to figure it out. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And I think you guys trace that so beautifully because,
Nick used to have me blocked on Twitter. Nick and I didn't always like each other, okay? You have to allow for people to grow and change, and it's just the way it goes. But Nick used to have me blocked on Twitter. Yes, I did think he was gay 3 years ago. Yeah, I did. But I don't think he's gay anymore.
This isn't just it's a theory. It's almost like a necessity. It's like, how else are we going to do it? The people who have some things in common aren't coming together. So I think, with that, I just felt like the book was extremely timely. It's powerful, but as I was reading it, I was like, there are just case studies that we can see right now. And you all published this book last fall before the Gaza Solidarity encampments. But as I was reading one of the chapters where you're talking about outside agitators as an example, it's like, that's the exact frame that they're using right now for these students and other groups of people who are showing solidarity with Palestinians. And so I want to ask you, I'm sure people on this call are already familiar with that as a trope. They're familiar with how it's been weaponized, but I'd love for you all to talk more. I mean, if you even want to just talk about the Gaza Solidarity encampments and how that aligns with, as an example of solidarity. So that's kind of part A. And then part B, why is this outside agitator framing, or actually why is outside agitation a good thing?
Should I go?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the encampments first? And what do you think?
Sure. Well, I think that, it's been really amazing to watch how the clampdown on these encampments and on these protesters, the clampdown on civil liberties. We see peace as a basic, something that everyone deserves and has a right to, and to protest in the name of peace and ceasefire as something that feels important and natural. And I think that a lot of the student encampments were a really courageous kind of form of solidarity with the Muslim and Arab and Palestinian community that's undergoing extreme pain. It's been a moment where we've seen reactionary solidarity on all sides. We've seen people kind of pull apart, and I think it's important to focus on the moments of how this can be a time of transformative solidarity. They're beautiful examples of Israelis who are working in solidarity with Palestinians, American Jews who are working in solidarity with the peace movement. And so, it's painful. It's a painful time for so many people. And I think that the focus, we really do need, even in our pain though, we can become reactionary. We can be, people can decide this is too bad, let's just burn it all down. And I think that's actually something to resist. And it's really hard to talk about because the pain is so real and important, and what's happening is so devastating. But I think we have to, part of the argument or the idea of solidarity is how do we think constructively and strategically, and how do we actually create a strong pro-peace movement in the United States over the long term, and a world that is safe for everyone in the Middle East, and a real solution to the conflict long term. Trump is not going to do that. Jill Stein is not going to do that. So I think it's a moment where we have to, we do have to think long term, and it's the real struggle. Like, the concept of solidarity is, I think the ideas of reactionary and transformative solidarity can be helpful in this moment in trying to think through the right the right way to move to move constructively.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add that, I think the movement and the students, have moved the needle, right? Like, the majority of people across political parties want a ceasefire now. And I think, one challenge is, like, how do we take that opinion and turn it into a potent political force, right? That can actually stop something as basic as, like, stopping weapons sales. Like, that is a low bar kind of thing. And so, I've been really moved watching the
Oh, we're spreading more rumors. Is it true you're upset big tech rejected your advances? No, because there were no advances. Also, thanks for answering my questions. Hope to see you at AppPack 5. I'll buy you a drink. Hey, I appreciate that. No, there were no advances.
encampments. I think the reaction to them, the overreaction by administrators, the basically like militarized.
The extent to which there were advances with big tech was just simple flirting. The same that I've done with Nick, the same that I've done with any of the Groypers. There were no real advances. I want to make that very fucking, because it's entirely possible. See, and now these are the things I have to think about, because unlike big tech, I didn't go back and delete our entire messaging history. So big tech could conceivably find messages in which he can take them out of context to say that, oh, she was trying to do this, she was trying to do that, she was trying to do the other thing. Big tech deleted the messages where he was talking about my tits. So I don't have those to show you. But so far as I'm concerned, it was just innocent fucking flirting, no differently than I've done with Nick, no differently than I've done with any of the Groypers, and it didn't really mean anything. Internet flirting is not an advance.
His reaction, I mean, it's almost like the students were being treated as like an insurrection when they were actually just these peaceful, multi-faith encampments where people were dancing and sharing food and doing teach-ins and stuff was so sort of telling.
Fine. It wasn't
I mean, there's a class of people, and it's not just Republicans, it is Democrats too, who are approaching Palestine as a wedge issue, who are basically saying this is an opportunity to, kind of split liberals and the left, to, demonize young activists by saying this movement is anti-Semitic, and it's coming from people who, in some cases, like Elise Stefanik, the representative from New York, who are like have a history of just racist crap. I mean, it's just so absolutely cynical. These people do not care about anti-Semitism. They don't care about getting rid of bigotry on college campuses. In fact, they want to privatize college campuses. So, and then they have enablers. I'm thinking today of, somebody like Representative Mondaire Jones, endorsing George Latimer against Jamal Bowman, because Jamal Bowman is an extremist for being one of the early people to call for a ceasefire, which was obviously the ethical, sensible position. So we're in a really tricky time, and I think under these kinds of conditions, it is important that we, still try to find ways to be open to people who are, changing their minds about things, who are, coming around to the position of ceasefire, even if it's taken them a long time, so that we can build real political power, so we can actually stop this war and create a peace movement that is about peace in the fullest sense, which I think is what Leo is getting at. Peace in the sense of everybody having their needs met, living without fear of violence, sharing this earth that we call home. Outside agitator trope goes back to this idea of, the ways movements are attacked and these politics of divide and conquer. So what did we hear at these encampments? I mean, we heard this from university administrators. We heard it from Mayor Eric Adams. Well, those aren't legit protesters. Those are outside agitators. Okay. There was a response from some folks to kind of say, well, hold on. No, they're not. They're from the community. They're actually friends of the protesters, right? To kind of try to neutralize the charge of outside agitator by saying, no, these folks aren't really agitators. They're organically connected. And, what our response is, so what if they're outside agitators? So what if it's somebody from a different movement who's a veteran of maybe, I don't know, Occupy Wall Street, or a veteran of the war in Iraq movement, or a veteran of the global justice movement, or BLM coming and saying, hey, we know how to organize. Here's how you run a meeting, or here's how you follow up with people, or here's how you engage in nonviolent civil disobedience, which is, Lisa Fithian, the longtime nonviolent civil disobedience trainer, is somebody who garnered a lot of headlines for being at Columbia. But this trope goes way back. It goes back to the civil rights era in particular, and it was used to delegitimize people like, for example, Martin Luther King, who would travel from town to town building the civil rights movement. And we quote him in the book by saying, none of us are outside. If we're all embedded in a world together, there is no outside. And that's the moral position, is to say, actually we're all interconnected. Therefore your fight, whether it's in the next state or it's all the way in Palestine, is actually something that I am bound to. And there's sociological research that shows outside agitators bring things to the table. And that's part of why they're so threatening to the status quo. They bring that sense of connection. They bring that sense of camaraderie. They bring skills and sometimes, training know-how that locals don't possess. And also sometimes when you're in connection with outsiders, with people from far away, it expands your sense of self and possibility. So there's a reason outsiders are demonized, seen as so threatening. And our position is, instead of trying to neutralize the charge, let's just lean into it and say, actually, no, being an outside agitator is worth aspiring to.
So what is the primary thing that we've heard from conservatives regarding the college encampments? These aren't students, they're outside agitators. And that is one of the things. It's the two things we heard, right? Is they're all funded by George Soros, which actually isn't true and is moronic when you look at their limited set of evidence for that. But the other thing is they're not even students, they're outside agitators. Who the fuck cares? Socialists don't care. The people running the protests don't care. Not only do the people running the protests not care, but they actually see outside agitators as a net benefit. They think it's going to bring in skills to their community. It's going to inspire people in different ways. It's going to make them better at what they do. So they're like, yeah, we're bringing in outside So conservatives are like, your protests are illegitimate because you're bringing in outside agitators. And the socialists are like, You're goddamn right we're bringing in outside agitators, and our protests are going to be better and more effective and more destructive because of it. And when you think about this in regards to college campuses, and we've talked about this before, but with outside agitators being involved in like the college protests, what does that mean? It means the protests are going to leave the campus at some point. Yeah. Conservatives are saying the college protests are rich kids throwing a tantrum because conservatives are morons.
Yeah, and I appreciated that you all leaned into that. And the first time I even heard of that framing was actually with Cop City. So I'm from Atlanta, raised there, and it's being constructed, for those who may not be familiar.
Exactly. You can't have solidarity without bringing in outside groups. They don't just mean solidarity with college students. They mean solidarity with everyone. It's engaging with the larger community.
A multi-million-dollar public training facility that is largely going to training police that happen to have affiliations. Georgia is a big one. They get training in Israel, and they apply a lot of those same militarized tactics to Southerners. So speaking of, outside agitators, we got people who are across the globe who are agitating inside of the US. You have foreign militaries who are training our people. So in a world that has become more globalized, so not just in the US, but across the globe, it's hard to say that anyone is truly an outsider. And so when I was talking to some of the organizers against Cop City, this, Stop Cop City movement, that's what they brought up. People who are coming in from out of town, it's useful that they feel an affinity to what's happening, because a lot of times that's going to happen on their doorsteps as well. They're building more quote unquote cop cities around the country. Before the cop city in Atlanta, I heard about one that's in Chicago. So these things, that a lot of these elite and, plutocrats, politicians, that they try and limit us when they're not limited. They're unlimited in who they get influence from and what they do in America's borders. So let's talk about something else positive. Astra, because we're thinking about the problems, the challenges that we have, but there's also really good work that you both have been doing. And I want to talk about your organization, Debt Collective. I first became familiar with you and the organization, I want to say, when I was an editor at Essence. We were covering some of the work that you all were doing. I thought, like Leah said, I thought it was ingenious that you're thinking about this debtors class, and therefore there should be a debtors union. So can you talk more about your organization and how it relates to solidarity?
Yeah, and thanks so much for including stories of the Debt Collective in your book. I mean, it's really essential, to any reporters and journalists listening, to use your platform to actually cover movements in a way that is not demeaning, that doesn't just repeat the outside agitator slurs, that actually, seriously engages questions of strategy. So the Debt Collective is an experimental union of debtors. And I say experimental because there's never been a debtors union before. We're inspired by the labor movement in the idea that people can come together and wield economic power. But we live in a moment now where, as we've discussed, labor law restrains a lot of the ability of people to organize in unions. A lot of folks are precariously employed, or they're students, or they're retired or should be retired. But we're all in the economy. And increasingly, we have to debt finance the necessities of life. So that means we have to take out student loans to get an education. We have to use credit cards to pay for our healthcare, our dental care, our rent, our necessities. People owe back rent, to a degree that is actually shocking. And of course, the American dream is having debt. It's having a mortgage because we don't have social housing. Subprime auto loans are a huge problem because we don't have public transit. So people need vehicles, right, in order to just get to work. And often those vehicles are the homes of last resort. We have people living.
You said subprime auto loans? That's a thing?
Auto loans. Yeah. It just means high interest, predatory auto loans. And And so Americans are indebted because we are living in a society that underpays us at the job. So your boss robs you once, and then that creates an opportunity for someone to lend you money at interest. So then you're robbed the second time. And of course, the absence of social services is what drives this. Because if there was universal health care, there wouldn't be medical debt. If there was universal dental care, there wouldn't be care credit, at the dentist's office. And so the idea is that debtors can come together and exert power together to demand debt cancellation and what we call reparative public goods. So, and we've been leading the fight for student debt cancellation. And we've won a ton of it. I mean, I think this is part of the sort of complex consciousness that Leah and I are trying to get at, right? When it's like, if I flash back to 10 years ago when we were just thinking about the debt collective, we were like, wow, like, wouldn't it be amazing if we could erase $1 million of debt? I mean, that just seemed unfathomable. So we were doing actions and teach-ins and spectacles, and the Biden administration has canceled over $160 billion of federal student loans. So over 5 million people have been liberated from this debt. I mean, that is a number that boggles my mind. And as an organizer, I have to relentlessly be like, that is not enough. But the truth is, it's something that never would have happened if people hadn't come together to demand it. If we hadn't done the legal research, if we hadn't played the role of kind of radicals, we went on debt strikes, engaged in what we call economic disobedience, but we also did the inside policy work. We also, created a coalition that included racial justice groups, labor, got people bought into what seemed like an impossible dream. We also found allies in Washington. We also made friends with experts, to use their incredibly granular knowledge for positive ends. And, and so I think there's more to do, but, what we polarized the American political party so that one party is the party of debt relief. Now, there was lots of caveats to that, and I could fill a whole session with the ways that the Democrats have not done this to their full ability and have kind of set themselves up to fail at the Supreme Court. There's lots there, but medical, there's now bills being proposed by people like Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders to cancel medical debt. We now have, representatives talking about school lunch debt cancellation, which is another thing the Debt Collective has been working on over the last few years. And so this is the thing, we were just like 10 people in the beginning, and now there's thousands of members. But like when small groups of people come together, you can move the needle. And so to me, I'm just like, what if more people were part of this effort? What if more people were, experimenting in other ways? Like, we actually do have more power than we think, but only when we build solidarity and work together. And just like the category of work, one thing we show in the book is the category of worker didn't just exist. We really linger on this. There were craftspeople, painters, cobblers, smiths, farmers. Like, people didn't think of themselves as united under the umbrella of worker or the working class. That had to be constructed over time as a response to changing economic conditions. And we're doing something similar with debtor on a much more rapid timescale, right? So it's not just, we had to work to get people with student debt from different schools to see themselves as in solidarity. Now we have meetings where there's people with different kinds of debt seeing themselves in solidarity. So, identities, identities evolve over time. Solidarity helps us kind of transcend the boundaries of those identities and invent new ones, and see ourselves in a shared struggle and fight. But, for me, it's just been a really interesting, moving experience to be in the Debt Collective. And I sometimes have to remember the past to kind of go like, oh yeah, I didn't just expect all these messages every day that was like, I got my debt canceled, because now that's what my life is like. And it's something that truly, I think I could not have imagined when we started this out. It's just a bunch of weirdos with some weird ideas at Occupy Wall Street.
I mean, and what's so
started
cool
out
is that
with weirdos and weird ideas at Occupy Wall Street.
So beautifully, and you're putting this idea of solidarity into practice by.
This is why this is why I have no forgiveness for Tim Pool. Tim Pool started his career covering Occupy Wall Street. This is what made Tim Pool famous. Covering Occupy Wall Street, going into the encampments and talking to the people and being a real fucking journalist for once in his life. And this is where a lot of these people started. Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street was a socialist protest. It was a far left, radical, revolutionary, socialist protest. Tim Pool was on the ground at that protest, had access to all of this, live streamed it and put it on the internet. And he learned nothing. He learned nothing in the course of doing that. Tim Pool should understand these people so much more than we do, but he doesn't. And it's like every single time he gets anything about the far left wrong, be like, Tim, these people started at Occupy Wall Street. You were at Occupy Wall Street. What the fuck happened? You were there. You documented it. What the fuck? The right is busy infighting, outing Nick. They reject agitators versus unifying under commonality. The left embraces agitators, build solidarity, and win. Yeah, that's a really good point. There, I mean, the left is flat out telling you that they embrace outside agitators. They think it's a good thing. It's something they're going to lean into. What is the right? The right is far more obsessed with Nick Fuentes than they are with any of these people. Everyone on the conservative right knows who Nick Fuentes is. Everyone on the conservative right has seen clips taken out of context of Nick and to make him look insane when he's not. Has the conservative right ever even watched these people? Does the conservative right even know what Haymarket Books is? Does the conservative right pay any attention to this at all? No, because they would much rather be at war with Nick Fuentes than with the real fucking enemy.
Finding a category, finding an identity for people that crosses generations and ages and class, because even well-off people, they've got debt and they might want to be class traders and be a part of the movement. You've got, young people, just all types across race, obviously, and gender. So I just think that it was really novel to find something like that in a world where division seems to be taking hold of everything. But to have these examples hopefully gives us a little bit of, of hope and a vision for the possibilities. So speaking of class traders, Leah, you come from a well-off family and you've talked about this, and you have a chapter where you all talk about the problem with charity and how philanthropy is often used by capitalists to beget more wealth. And, the audience is probably full of socialists and other lefties like myself. And so we, of course, have a natural skepticism for, I would say, the masses of wealthy people, of capitalists, of the ownership class, trying to do what's right. When doing what they do, they're incentivized to create more wealth for themselves. So how much faith do you have? You've been in these circles, you've been in these spaces. How much faith do you have in the bourgeoisie, or at least enough of them, listening to you all and recognizing how you can have philanthropy and solidarity? Do you have any faith? Is it more so like an abstract longing? What do you think?
I don't have a lot of faith. I think that we're in a tough situation, though, because in the past century, we've created a tax structure that privileges charitable donations and has created nonprofits with 501c3 status, out of which a lot of us do our organizing. And then those are dependent on philanthropic contributions. And that happened simultaneously as we started, as we implemented stronger, harsher labor law to start breaking down unions and other institutions that were self-funded by the working class. So we live in, many of you probably know the concept of the nonprofit industrial complex, that it was actually a Black Women's Liberation Collective, I think, coined that term in the book, The Revolution Will Not Be Funded. But so that's kind of the situation we're in, is, with a charitable class that doesn't really have the same goals in mind as the organizations that they're funding, and so that disconnect is going to constantly kind of undermine progressive work. So I do believe that there are class traders out there, and that there may be enough of them to fund alternative efforts. And I've spent my life trying to like help those people organize and help politicize folks with those who have that possibility that they could help resource more left work. But personally, I think we need to rebuild kind of self-funding organizations. We need to rebuild the labor movement, and organizations that aren't dependent on philanthropy. But along the way, a lot of us are trying to raise money for nonprofit work, and so I advise people to like see wealthy people as organizing targets. They can grow politically, especially like through ongoing long-term relationships, and so to treat them as people who can be moved, not just as fundraising targets, but as actually as people who you might be in relationship with over the long term, and who could become more and more of an ally. But it's hard because the incentives are at odds. But I think that it's all about organizing, and organizing across class is part of that. It's not something that we talk about a lot, but it takes like deep hard work. But I think it's something that we all have to do.
Thank you, Leah. And we've got some questions in the chat, which we will get to. So this is actually going to be my last question for you all, so that we can get to some of these pressing comments from, this is all in solidarity, right? So we want to get questions from the audience, get them involved here. And so in the final chapter for both of you, you characterize solidarity as something that is sacred. And you say, we need to embody devotion and dedication if we want to wield power in numbers. And we're working against enormous challenges and adversaries and even violence for that dedication as people who care about these causes. So I want to ask you all, just for yourselves individually, y'all heard Astra's, all of her activities, everything that she has going on. And so I want to ask you all, what are some practices that you've done to stay devoted and dedicated, be it emotionally, physically, or otherwise?
I can start. We talk in our last chapter, we get kind of more spiritual. The last chapter is called Solidarity in the Sacred. And we do think it's important to have basically daily practices, rituals that help you stay grounded and stay connected and stay hopeful. We talk about virtues of solidarity, things like courage, justice, humility, curiosity, ways to kind of stay open to learning and open to other people and being connected and getting involved. But when you think about, capitalism kind of structures your life in a way with daily rituals of buying and selling and acquiring money and losing money. And most of the rituals are around money. And it's really important to just intentionally structure your life around rituals that nurture you and nurture your relationships. But that's a great question. Nobody's actually asked me like what have
They do very literally want to get rid of money in the socialist utopia. They want to get rid of the banks. I don't know what they're going to replace it with, like probably like ration cards or something like that, but they are very anti-money in general.
Which ones do I do?
Because money is a form of private property. Money means some people have more money than others. They don't want it. They want everyone to be equally poor under socialism. So, yeah. So we'll all get the same set of coupons.
For me, it's like finding projects that that I stay involved in and work on every day, and that connect me with people who are different from me, but who I feel like we're working towards common goals. And it really feeds me. It really nurtures my soul to be, right now I'm involved with some labor work around I'm really excited about the kind of developments at the UAW and the Teamsters just affiliated with the Amazon labor union. And, how can we support this burgeoning movement? So, and like thinking about that, working on that every day, is actually like a really nurturing practice for me.
Yeah, I can hear sorry, it's like TMI, but I can hear my younger sister being like, never ask Astra about her like life balance or anything, because I'll just be like, my work is what I love. But it's true. Like the thinking and the doing, and getting to be in community with Leah and work on this project together, and getting to have that intellectual creative space of writing this book and being like, what do we really think about this? Wow, what actually happened? Who are our ancestors that we want to honor? Who are the people that we're actually fighting? I mean, just getting to really engage in those questions was such a pleasure for me. And echoing what Leah said too, I mean, part of I think for me, what's so powerful about organizing, and I think it's also what drew me to filmmaking and to journalism, is just getting to talk to people who aren't like me, who have different perspectives, different life experiences, and feeling connected to that world, feeling connected to the world.
Yes, Autumn. We know
is really
Sam
powerful.
is the socialist. We know, not a very good socialist, I think but a socialist nonetheless.
Sometimes people ask me, like, how have I stuck with the Debt Collective so long? And part of it is, I don't know, the more earnest questions, like, well, we're fighting the good fight, and I want to change policy and all that. But like, being an organizer is also a chance to kind of be bad. You get to disrupt things. You get to make mayhem. I mean, otherwise, like, being an adult is just like you're supposed to just do the right thing all the time and be good all the time. I mean, we went to DC last week. I'm quite proud of us. We did a Fund Education, Not Genocide action in Washington, DC. I'm proud of us because I just think it's important to connect what's happening in Gaza with other issues, right? To say, when we're talking about the peace that we're aspiring to, it's not just the absence of this brutal war, but the provision of people's, basic needs, right? It's not just the absence of this violence, but also the presence of care in the form of, social supports that help us all live flourishing lives. But we disrupted a corporate convention at a hotel, and and stuff like that.
Hang on. D, they don't care about getting rid of inequality. Equality is not what they're going for. Equity is fundamentally different than equality. So equity means from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. It doesn't matter. Like, people are going to have access to different resources under equity. The issue is, how are the resources distributed? Because the idea is that under a socialist world built on equity, people will have access to whatever resources they need. And so even if some people have access to more resources than others, the resources will still get distributed equitably. Well, tell him that, Autumn. Tell him I'm not Nick Fuentes' press secretary. Nick Fuentes was trying to be on AOC's side yesterday. So go tell Nick that he can call into Sam Cedar's show. I'm not passing along a message.
It's like fun. Like, the hotel workers shook our hands on the way out, and so I think just part of that, just tapping into that energy is honestly part of what keeps me going. I'm in it for the mayhem.
Yeah. So doom scrolling on Twitter is not the solution. We got to go outside, right? Kind of touch some grass.
No.
Twitter. Yeah, just barely.
Autumn, just tweet at Nick or something. Jesus.
Yeah. I think hope, though, I mean,
Neo
more seriously, I'm always coming back to Miriam Kaba, that hope is a discipline. Actually, because we're up against a lot. The climate clock is ticking. Our feeds are full of, absolutely devastating images and anguish people and parents, every minute. I mean, it is enough to make you want to just hide. And yeah, I mean, we're not after the kind of naive optimism of like, oh, it'll all turn out, but like the disciplined hope that people had before us when they were fighting against tremendous odds and trying to change the world. And so I think that, that is a phrase we just keep coming back to.
Well, thank you, Leah and Astra and Haymarket Books for making this conversation possible. You two aren't just doing the writing, like I said, it's very—
Autumn, if Sam Cedar wants Nick to call in, then have Sam Cedar tweet at him or something. Have Sam Cedar slide into his DMs.
Evocative and powerful and profound writing in this book, and profound and important ideas. But as people have heard, as I've heard, they're also going outside and making trouble and doing things and organizing. And so the fact that you're able to have this praxis, I just want to commend you two for that, because it's work. It's a lot of work, and I'm sure it's exhausting. Or like Astra, it feeds her. So, for a lot of people, it's exhausting. So thank you. And if anybody, if you want to be at home, you want to just give them a hand clap, just give them a hand clap. And we're going to start transitioning now to some questions, because we've got a few in the chat. So let's start. I'm just, going to try and get to as many as possible. So one of them is, how do ideas of mutual aid fit into the story you're telling about solidarity? Are the two things identical, or are there different histories, theories?
Yeah.
Oh, I think mutual aid was definitely, historically, it was part of a similar conversation about the importance of solidarity. It had a little bit more of an anarchist kind of orientation, but the idea that even that the state could actually help support mutual aid was also just—
For people who are unaware and you're curious about why Autumn the Socialist is talking about Sam Cedar, Autumn the Socialist is a mod in Sam Cedar's chat. So it's not just like it's not just like that Sam Cedar is her favorite. It's like Autumn is actually connected to Sam Cedar.
Discussed. I think of it as like an ecosystem of activities that need to be done to cultivate solidarity. So there's like work you can do as an individual to cultivate solidarity. There's work you can do organizationally, and then there's work we can do at the level of the state. So I would fit mutual aid definitely into that ecosystem. But it's also like we need to get to the policy level if we want that to kind of scale and to have kind of broader impact over time. But the mutual aid is like it's kind of like one of those practices that turns you into a solidaristic person.
Dee, thank you for being a member of the channel for 3 months. I definitely made my comment about social credit more about thinking implications out loud to myself, not debunking. Hey, no worries. I didn't say anything about debunking. You're all good. Appreciate it.
And it shows you the kinds of policies that—
Guys, there's about 15 minutes left of this video, so it's a good time to mount the like button if you have not already. I promise tomorrow's stream for happy hour, I will not be doing an hour-long rant about an internet boy that tried to make it seem like I was infiltrating a group that I wasn't infiltrating. So you can come back here for happy hour, 5 p.m. We will be watching a woke training. I actually think we're going to watch about queer theory in the Catholic Church tomorrow. So it'll be a good training for groypers, because I'll tell you exactly how the queer Marxists are co-opting the Catholic Church, which I know the groypers don't want to believe is happening, but is happening right in front of them right now, and they can make all the excuses they want, but that's not going to stop it from happening. So I think we're going to watch that tomorrow for happy hour. That's going to be around 5 p.m. And so please make sure you are subscribed to my channel, whether you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or X. Make sure you've mounted that like button for me. And if you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to my Substack. Make sure you're subscribed, and you can sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year, or you could just send in some super chats. If you've enjoyed the stream today, I know maybe it wasn't one of my best streams, but if you've enjoyed the stream today, $5 super chat, $10 super chat, I would really appreciate it.
Like the kind—
My dog would appreciate it too. She's complaining. You hear this? Hear this? What's going on downstairs in my house right now? It's just started raining. My dogs apparently are seeing a ghost out. Like, you can send in a $5 super chat. I can go buy my dog a bag of bones to get her to shut the fuck up. The boy is barking as well. They're both upset at something. My husband is doing nothing to stop this. Anyway, let's continue.
Into the kind of world that we want to build. So I think it is really, really important.
Okay. So moving on to the next question, what about the fault lines between relationships, if those are the basis for solidarity? Thinking here about major political divisions within families or friend groups. Would y'all like to take that?
I mean, that's a tough one, but I think it's actually just speaking to what it is to be human. I mean, I'm thinking about my friend, the late great
Autumn, as I recall, I offered to go on Sam's show and talk to him, and then you took the idea back to them and they didn't want to talk to me. So no, Autumn, that ship has sailed. I tried. I was very nice. I offered to do it. Now, you didn't know that I wasn't really intending to do it at the time because I knew that you were going to come back and say that Sam doesn't want to talk to me. So, that's just the way it goes, Autumn. Too bad, so sad. Thank you, Dragon Balls, for the super chat. I've enjoyed the stream. And to buy an Imperial, you want me to buy an Imperial Stout? All right, I'll buy an Imperial Stout for tomorrow. I promise. Oh, so any of my chatters are welcome to call into Sam Cedar's show, but not me. Why, Autumn? Is Sam too much of a pussy to debate a girl? Sam knows he would get his ass beaten by me so badly if he tried to debate me about socialism. It's really too bad. Sam Cedar's really, Autumn is really proving right now what I've been saying all along. Sam Cedar is afraid of me. It's true, just like James Lindsay. Nick, thank you for the super chat. I love the rants. It's a nice pressure relief valve when a boxing bag is not available. Yo, I could have used a boxing bag the other day, I'll tell you that. But I appreciate the super chat, Nick.
Anthropologist David Graeber, who people probably know from his book, The Dawn of Everything, that was published just after he died. It was an international bestseller. His book, Debt, The First 5,000 Years. And so David was one of the folks, he was the person who invited me to Occupy Wall Street.
I
and he was
have
one of
bigger
the kind of
energy
co-schemers
than basically
in the
everyone.
group that sort of was the precursor to the Debt Collective. And sometimes I'd
why most
lament,
men have
like,
the
oh
good
my
sense
gosh,
not to
this
fuck with me and
meeting,
lie about me on the internet.
People fought, there was conflict. And he was just like, that's anthropologists study communities, and that's just what people do. This is part of it. I think on some level that's grounds to just be like, okay, this is something we're going to have to cope with. I think we counsel these virtues that Leah has mentioned, and some of them speak to ways we can engage with others to bridge some of those divides, to cope better with conflict. And we do this, right? We try to reach across these relational rifts and differences. Why? Because we need each other to win. We need to build a movement, or movements, plural, with as many people as possible, because we are, being outspent and outgunned in some situations. And so this is like a strategic, there's strategic reasons for trying to do this, for trying to build movements, because otherwise we're just building subcultures. And subcultures are nice, but we need to do more than that. And so we counsel things like curiosity. That's one of our virtues. Where are people coming from? Where some humility, like maybe we don't have all the answers, and so we need to approach people with a spirit of humility. Some forbearance. We need to create paths so that there can be repair. And this is the thing at the heart of the idea of why we focus on the idea of transformative solidarity. It's the conviction that people and systems can change. No person's set in stone. No system is immutable. There's no like ancient hatreds that are actually just eternal and can never be, never be ended. Like this faith in transformation, I think, is really fundamental to us. And so, the last chapter of the book, which is on the sacred, actually talks about treating people, our relationships being rooted in the idea that nobody's disposable. And so that, and that can mean like, trying again for strategic reasons to have a kind of spirit of patience, to kind of welcome people wherever they are on their journey. Like we don't all begin as like perfectly woke anti-capitalists, you know, we all begin where we begin. And
what? Holy shit. We don't always begin as perfectly woke anti-capitalist. Holy shit. Thank you, Astra. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, girl. Thank you. I'm clipping that shit. We need that. We need that clip like ASAP. Come on, ScreenFlow. Don't let me down. No! Fuck you, ScreenFlow. You were literally just working an hour ago. Oh, come on. ScreenFlow, I believe in you. Don't let me down. Yes, it's working this time. Excellent. Just need to, restart. That's all.
Strategic regions to have a kind of spirit of patience, to kind of welcome people wherever they are on their journey. You know, like we don't all begin as like perfectly woke anti-capitalists, you know, we all begin where we begin.
Hang on. I want to go back and do that again because now my dog is barking again, honey. Fucking Chihuahua. Why did I get a Chihuahua? Why? That was a horrible decision. Why? Hang on. My dog is working out some feelings. Hang on. Is this pulling in my mic, though? Hang on. I don't think... Never mind. This recording isn't pulling in my mic. I can record it again. Okay, one more time.
Again, for strategic regions to have a kind of spirit of patience, to kind of welcome people wherever they are on their journey. You know, like we don't all begin as like perfectly woke anti-capitalists, you know, we all begin where we begin. And I think part of our job as organizers is like not just opening the door, but really trying to invite people through it and holding space for folks to change their mind. So that's work. That's emotional labor, but that's the labor of organizing. And it's not always easy, but it's really essential.
That's right.
And so the labor of organizing is to make people into good little woke anti-capitalists and to wait for them to take the journey of becoming good little woke anti-capitalists. Isn't that so nice of her to say the entire quiet part out loud? That was very, very nice. Make sure my clip's saved just in case. My dog doesn't want me to record this, but you know, my dog is not the boss of me. Where's the clip, ScreenFlow? Come on. Oh, did it save it there? Okay, it saved it in the same thing as the other one. Okay, never mind. Let's keep going.
And it's normal, you know, to have disagreements and to have to bring people into the fold. So we've got time for maybe 2 more questions. And
listen, my dog is incredibly socialist when it comes to food. My dog, all dogs are capitalists when it comes to their food, and they are socialists when it comes to people food.
And one of them asks, can you both speak to what a solidarity framework would look like if applied to the climate catastrophe? What would it say about who to ally with and on what terms? If Leah, you want to start with that?
Well, I don't know who you are, but you need to look at the date on that tweet because that was 3 fucking years ago, and that was when you guys were being assholes to me, and Nick had blocked me on Twitter anyway, and since then we've made it. You guys gotta look at the date. Like, you guys gotta look at the dates of things, but I don't even know if you're a real groiper because I feel like real groipers are smarter than this, and real groipers know how to look at dates on things. And real groipers can see that there's a reply to the tweet saying disavow, things have changed. So, all right. I don't think you're a real groiper. Goodbye.
Sure. I wish I could ask this person more about what they're thinking about. But I think that, you know, our focus on solidarity is in part on strategy and outcomes. And so like the
groipers are I'm sorry, like anyone coming in and saying and like giving me a hard time over this tweet, real groipers have saw my previous coverage of Nick. Real groipers have heard me call Nick gay more than once. So I don't believe that the people doing that are real groipers. I'm sorry.
big catastrophe is real and happening fast. And so I think it is important to build as big of a coalition as possible. We talk a bit in the last chapter about the Standing Rock protests, and I think the importance of allying with indigenous communities, people who are sort of at the front lines of experiencing, the fossil fuel industry on their lands, impacting their.
So I can tell you, I'm in a Gripper group chat, and none of them fucking care. So, nice try, trolls.
Water. So I think it's really important to be allying with people who are really on those front lines. But I think we can also ally with. I think we need to ally with people who are
probably
who are thinking about big policy solutions. There was frustration. We had a vision for the Green New Deal, and there was frustration around the Inflation Reduction Act not doing everything that was in that initial vision, but it's making progress, and I think we have to just keep pushing like it is a climate emergency, and I think we all need to be throwing ourselves into that like it's the existential crisis that it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question, and I think that we talk in terms of what we would picture. We talk about again this idea of the solidarity state. So solidarity at different levels, our interpersonal relationships, our organizations we're building, and then at the level of policy. And we talk a lot about the need for climate reparations in terms of like the cancellation of these sovereign debts, so that there can be investments in climate resilience. Again, we're trying to create a framework of like kind of sort of next level policies, not sort of our utopian horizon. But I do think, on the climate crisis, it is an all hands on deck, like align with who we can moment, just given the scale of, the scale of the interest that we're up against. I mean, I don't know if people saw, there was a poll yesterday that was going around that was like, over half of Americans want to see fossil fuel companies in court. Like to see, I mean, even after all of the relentless, misinformation around climate, I mean, this is still something most people are concerned about. And they want to see the people behind this crisis, pay in some way, but to build the power that we need to actually change things, it's very daunting. And so and obviously we're going to have labor at the table. We're going to have these frontline communities, but yeah, it's a big job, a big question. We do get a bit into some of the things we'd like to see in the book.
Climate is big, and so these are questions that we've had to grapple with for a really long time, and there's just so many forces against it and so much greenwashing that's happening, even though these corporations say that they're in solidarity with us and they're actually not. So yes, that's a huge one. So we've got time for this last question, and somebody asked to get some more clarity about reactionary solidarity. They said, can you speak more about that? Is the idea ideology neutral? That will be our final question.
Yeah, so we create this distinction, and I actually will say I think Astra had this idea of solidarity is kind of a neutral concept. It's not always a good thing. It can really go in different directions depending on how it's used and what the ends are that it's directed towards. And so we define reactionary solidarity as kind of exclusionary group cohesion that is based on a strong distinction between the us and the them, and the them should be annihilated. The them cannot kind of come, is not welcome, and it's whereas transformative solidarity is trying to build a bigger we, it also involves an us and a them, that the them can be transformed. The idea is that, the them can may change, that there is porosity. It's more like the Martin Luther King, idea of beloved community. So we believe that in any case there is going to be polarization, because we think that there are people are at odds. Like, there are people who are trying to succeed on the backs of others, and so the purpose of this distinction, but it can happen both ways. You can see reactionary solidarity on the left at times, when we become too purist and too exclusive. So we think that the distinction can kind of help us orient towards the kind of solidarity that we should strive for, which is still principled, is still clear about its goals, but sort of always has a window open, for the possibility that things can change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. I think the thing is, for reactionary solidarity for us, it's again, it's not just like that it's mean because it's exclusive and insular, right? So, I think for us, the classic examples of reactionary solidarity sort of at its most sort of visible would be white supremacy, ethno-nationalism, religious fundamentalism, are examples of reactionary solidarity, but that these formations tend to abet the concentration of wealth and power, right? Like, reactionary solidarity is also the things that plutocrats are trying to, it's the mode plutocrats are trying to encourage, right? Like, oh yeah, you white working class, it's the immigrants that are the problem. They're taking your jobs. They're the reason the economy is bad, not because we, your employers, are, stealing your wages and hoarding wealth. And so there's a kind of misdirection inherent in reactionary solidarity. So we're making a sort of, political value judgment of it as well. And this aspect of, again, the transformative solidarity, it's this idea that people can change and that systems can change. So, I think this point that Leah made is key. It's like, we think you have to polarize. There's always an us and a them. And, but you can target people as representatives of systems. So when we say we want to abolish billionaires, it's not some essentialist thing. It's not the same thing as being against people for their gender, or sexuality or their race. It's the position you occupy in the economy is unjust. And so we want to abolish billionaires as a structural class, and you'll be actually better off for it. You'll probably be less weird in a bad way if you're no longer a billionaire. So you can come down to earth and join the ranks of ordinary people, maybe have some relationships that aren't just based on the fact you have way too much money. So I think it's a useful framework, because I think it was important for us to acknowledge that solidarity is not neutral and not always good, but the good kind is really good. Since we're ending, the transformative kind is really good. And it is the basis for building the power that we need to change things. It is, we believe, the precursor, the foundation of multiracial, egalitarian, solidaristic, democratic, socialist, whatever you want to call it, small d democracy, right? Because it's trying to include more people, trying to expand the circle of inclusion, I would say beyond the human to the more than human world. And it's something that we can actually, we can build it day by day in our relationships. And so it's really important stuff. And, I'm excited that we got to write this book together and actually think about it, because I drank the Kool-Aid of solidarity over the last couple of years. I'm writing this, and hopefully it's helpful to people as they're trying to figure out how to make some change.
Wonderful. Thank you for that closing note, Astra. And if you all want to drink the Kool-Aid,
All right.
it's extra sweet on.
That's it. Congratulations to everyone who made it through the very end. That was a presentation about solidarity. We got some great clips out of that one. I'm pretty glad that we watched it. They're actually, Haymarket's been doing a bunch of stuff about solidarity lately for some reason. So I'm a little curious about why they're publishing so many books about that. So it's something we're definitely going to keep an eye on. But guys, that is all the show that we have for today. So remember, we will be back for happy hour tomorrow at 5 p.m. where we're going to watch some training about queer theology in the Catholic Church. And we're going to have some beers and we're going to talk about it because it's going to be Friday and it's going to be awesome. Also, remember, please head over to my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, where I have just posted part 3 of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto, which I've been working on for a while. And I apologize it took so long to get there. This is part of the Inner Circle podcast, which is my supporter only podcast that you can get by signing up for $8 a month, $80 a year, and you'll get all access to other premium content as well. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for mounting the like button on the way out the door if you have not already. And I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.